Hello and welcome to episode 165 of The Crate and Crowbar. We're recording on the 11th of November. That's wrong. I'm going to start again. It's the 9th of November.
It's the 9th of the 11th.
Yeah, that's why I got confused. Hello and welcome to episode 165 of The Crate and Crowbar. We're recording on the 9th of November. My name is Chris Thurston, and tonight I'm joined by Tom Francis.
Hello.
Tom Senior.
Hello.
And Philippa War.
Hello.
So, we're going to start with video game news, obviously, although I think all of us haven't necessarily been thinking entirely about video game news on the day we happen to choose to record this. I guess say for my part, I'm really glad we are recording today rather than having recorded yesterday for something that's going up on Friday. Simply because I don't know.
The world has changed.
The world
since
has
today.
Yeah, the magnitude of the upset is such that I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily
In UK date format, today is 9/11.
Yeah, that's it's terrible. It's just terrible stuff. And maybe might not be the bounciest of pods as a direct consequence of us all having gone through possibly one of the. Well, I mean, I thought we would already had the worst day of our political existences this year, but it happened again. So
2016, man.
Yeah,
Put it in the bin.
Year.
Good games though.
Good games, yeah. Yeah. At what price? Star Wars being good again. I would not pay it. But nonetheless, it's still important to entertain ourselves and other people and to celebrate people who are making cool stuff. And that seems more and more important now, actually, in some ways, that we have, kind of lucky to be part of a pretty, a cool, community within an industry that's getting better at doing lots of important things to do with, representation and fairness and decency and, what felt like, I guess a movement towards that as a whole is now maybe just something that we can help push within our own small part of the world. I don't know if that makes any sense, but video games. Anyhow, news other than that this week, we were entirely right about BlizzCon. That's something we can definitely say. Without a doubt, on last week's pod, we called every single announcement at BlizzCon more or less, from there being basically not very much.
We thought, we knew the Necromancer was coming, and so we thought expansion to Diablo 3, but actually it's less than that, because it's it's a pack of sorts, but it's a pack specifically for Reaper of Souls, which is the name of the last expansion.
Yeah.
It's like a Reaper of Souls, Necromancer pack. And it's just the class, but then they're also doing, I heard that it was going to be a remake of Diablo 1, but actually it sounds more like it's going to be all the levels from Diablo 1 in Diablo 3 as a kind of a thing that you go through with your Diablo 3 character, I gather.
Yeah, that's separate from the Necromancer pack.
Right.
And that's coming sooner. So the Necromancer is coming later next year. And that's just going to be a character, and it'll give you a few extra character slots, and that character will come with a load of, relevant, unique items and stuff like that. And obviously the new skill tree. But the Diablo 1 thing is they're replicating Diablo 1 and Diablo 3, and that will be a much kind of sooner separate thing, which I believe will be free. Whereas I think the Necromancer pack will be paid for.
Yeah.
I love the Necromancer in Diablo 2. It's my favourite class. It was the class I
think, like we said last week, and I think I said it was my favourite class, and I think you did as
Yeah,
well. All three of us.
We all loved it, but seeing it again, I'll definitely play through it and be really excited about it. But I was just like, oh yeah, corpse explosion, and then you can throw bone spikes at people and raise skeletons, and it's I did that for 100 hours when I was 16, and I think the last thing that Diablo needs is nostalgia. I want to do new stuff in Diablo and see new things. So I felt like it was a little bit of a step back for the series, actually, just to kind of pander to Diablo 2 fans and not kind of push it again. Because the Crusader class they added with Reaper of Souls is fantastic. It's my favourite class of that game now. And the new areas they added, they really pushed their engine and created some of the best zones in the game. It's about 2.5 years now since Reaper of Souls came out, and Diablo has just coasted and coasted, and it feels like it's like this entropic drifting into repetitive territory. So yeah, I was a little bit disappointed they didn't announce expansion.
Yeah, it makes me feel like an expansion is maybe not coming anytime soon, because if they had the Necromancer in the works, you would save it for the expansion if you're going to do an expansion.
For sure.
So it makes me think they don't have one planned.
And in which case, what does Diablo 4 even look like? Because one of the things I loved about Diablo 3 was that it was a genuine, like, it was a new treatise on the action RPG formula, which is like really, really set in stone. But the skill system and the classes they chose to put in, and, you know, a lot of the kind of online stuff they tried, like, they were really trying to revolutionize that genre. And, you know, a lot of people didn't disagree with the direction they took, but it was a new take on Diablo. They didn't just make Diablo 2 again. And there's no point in doing that, because Diablo 2 is still great and you can still play it. So I wonder what Diablo 4 looks like and how they would even take that next leap into a sequel.
Did you make a BlizzCon, Pip?
Sorry, I was just enjoying Tom flying in the face of popular culture, saying that something doesn't need more nostalgia.
Yeah.
Very much King Canute there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was just so, like, part of me kind of can't really believe that the Sombra ARG is over. There's still part of me
been so
that's
many
like,
years.
it's still going, right? This is just like another step. Until the character comes.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of, that's a weird one. But I don't know, it kind of just came and went. I mean, I tried watching the Overwatch, finals, the esports thing that they had, the World Championship show match majigger. And that was tedious as well. Loads of people have been in touch to say that the third place match was a lot better. I think that was Finland and
Russia?
no, Russia and South Korea was the final.
Oh.
And, like, South Korea didn't even drop a map. It was,
Yeah, they
like,
were
that
basically spawn
one-sided.
camping
It was just like, yep, okay. Nope, they've got this. Okay, no, they've got this as well. Okay, good. Right, fine. And so, like, that was underwhelming, and the Sombra stuff was underwhelming, and I don't play Diablo, but, like, that seemed underwhelming. So I don't know whether they just really needed to set everybody's expectations at floor level. Like, we're not announcing anything, and then everyone would have lost their minds over anything that they did then announce, or whether there was, like, more just the micro stuff and the community stuff that if I'd been there, I'd have sort of felt that. You've said about the atmosphere being amazing,
but it always feels like there's a mixture of the convention itself, but also the fact that, like, there are always surprises. There's always, you know, the first time I was there, Heroes of the Storm was announced. The second time I was there was the first time Overwatch was playable, and Warcraft Legion was announced, which was huge for the people who were there at the time. That was actually the biggest response that anything get, because a lot of people there are WoW players. And there didn't seem to be anything like that this year. Like, I always watch I try and find like a crowd reaction video for BlizzCon stuff, because I love watching people get excited about things, and you can, you know, YouTube people who like filmed the announcements on their phones, which I don't think they do to try and like bootleg the thing, because it is being broadcast on the internet at the same time. But I think because those reactions are sometimes, you know, great. And I watched the Sombra one, and it was extremely muted by BlizzCon standards, in that we know this is happening kind of way. Like, this is what we expected to happen, which I think, you know, had they not done the ARG at all, that would have been a rapturous moment. But they sort of fucked it up.
Her character reveal video was kind of the most sort of enjoyable of those so far, I think. Like, some of them have had their moments, but that one, like, it kind of felt like there was a self-conscious meminess to it that has been in, I don't know if anybody else will have felt this way about, like, Sherlock, the BBC series, but, like, there's a kind of, okay, this is the part that will end up on Tumblr, this is the part that will end up being the GIF. Yeah. And so, like, the boop bit at the end of the Sombra video was so that, and, like, there's a moment.
Like the first time she does it, like, to the person, kind of worked for me. Like, it didn't stand out as being actively courting Tumblr, but then like right at the end, do you remember that bit when we did that other bit? It wasn't that good.
I think my favourite bit was where she made as if to let Reaper through a doorway and then, like, went to close it again.
That was great.
Like, that was just a nice kind of playful, stupid moment between people that kind of know each other, and one's messing with the other one. Like, that was just quite nice. But the boop thing was just so kind of, hi, internet. This is the thing. This is the bit.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Yeah.
It was the first one to experiment with being funny, at least a bit, I think. 'Cause the others, they're not serious in the way that video games are often serious, but they take themselves very seriously.
Yeah.
Like the Tracer Widowmaker one is fundamentally like, can you save Robot Gandhi from a blue assassin?
And then there's like, this robot has PTSD.
Yeah, which
Here's a bird. And like there was a Pixar-ness to that, but it still was like.
And the Genji Hanzo one, which is like
Most serious thing ever.
like we want to do a martial arts movie, but we're just going to take all of the ideas from that and then do it ourselves, which is the.
And the Winston one, that was just like a bit nothingy.
There's a gorilla. He's a scientist.
And there's like a baby gorilla that we can now monetize.
Yeah.
So, like, maybe
an
I'm
entirely
just too
milkable baby gorilla.
But yeah, so underwhelming, I guess, is the feeling for this camp.
To digress briefly, the changes to Overwatch are actually pretty cool. I don't know if anyone else has been on the public test realm.
I haven't. I've stopped playing it, actually. I don't know if everybody else has.
Have you got PTRSD?
Oh. That barely works.
I'll tell you what, though, if I have to remember another acronym, I'm gonna just explode, because there's like the public test round, there's the public test server, which is a different game, the public beta environment, like so many different versions of these things. It's ridiculous. Sorry, my voice is going, but yeah, it's like, can we not just fix on a name for this? Like, we've got early access, everyone's fine with that. Like, Kickstarters, we know what those are.
So the testy place basically has what will be the big update, including Sombra. I haven't played her yet because you go into one of the things they've changed is that the only one of each character per team rule is now applied to all Overwatch, not just ranked, which means you will never play Sombra in your life. Well, although they have subsequently moved Pip.
I spilled hot toddy down my tummy.
Oh.
I'm sorry. That wasn't... I was just looking stricken. I wasn't expecting you to ask.
I didn't know the difference between the I've got something to say on this topic look and the I've spilled something look.
Oh.
They're really similar.
Sorry. You go ahead.
But what they have done is broken out what was previously just the brawl part of the menu to be called the arcade, and it has loads of modes in there, including like a kind of free-for-all mode, which is basically old quick play, where you can play any number of different heroes you want. But the other thing that's in there are two modes that are in there that took me completely by surprise because I don't pay very much attention. So maybe this isn't a surprise. One of them is a 3 versus 3 elimination mode, where it's on a small, sort of windy, deathmatchy map, and you have this, best of 5, best of 3 elimination mode against another team. It's a lot like Trials of Osiris if you play Destiny. Like you go in and if you die, you're out. The first team to wipe out, the other one wins. And you can change heroes every round. So you can try different compositions like, Anna, Roadhog, McCree works well for various reasons, but you might counter with something else. So that seems like it's got loads of potential. And the other mode I played was their 1v1 mode, which I genuinely thought was just load in, you play a 1v1 with any two heroes. But actually it's quite a long round-based thing where you'll play I think it's 8 rounds, and you play as a different hero every round, and it's always mirror match.
Is it randomly selected?
Yeah. So it's always a mirror match, and at the start, it'll show you, your Farah and their Farah, or whatever. And there are two things that stood out to me about it. One was that I ended up feeling a lot friendlier than Overwatch does at the moment. Overwatch has become a real toilet in terms of its community online. But because this is one other person, there's basically well, maybe this is just luck, but the people I've played it with were kind of fun. And maybe that helps that you're on the public test server and stuff. People have got to opt into this and be maybe proactive about finding it. But it is only the two of you, and you have to play it quite a lot, and you're definitely going to be out of your character comfort zone some of the time. So that seemed to foster this kind of I don't know, a lot of good luck, have funs and lols after silly victories and stuff like that. And partly also because some of the matchups are genuinely quite high skill ceiling, and they're all very different, but two Farahs trying to kill each other is all about dodging rockets and trying to hit people in mid-air and stuff, because it's much more trying to minimize the amount of time you spend on the ground, so you're less vulnerable to splash damage. 2 Widowmakers trying to kill each other is a sniper battle. 2 Hanzos trying to kill each other is an archer battle. And if you're both McCree, then something that's about managing the cooldown on his roll that reloads his gun and his flashbang, and that stuff all matters. But then you get matchups that make no sense whatsoever, like Symmetra versus Symmetra, where both of you create nests full of turrets in different parts of the map, and then
Now, perfectly Symmetra violence. No,
and then and what happened when we had a Symmetra off was we both created like little turret nests on either side of a wall, which had like a doorway in it. And both would like pop out of the doorway to see if the other one was interested in going into the other one's death zone, and neither of us really were.
Sounds like a kind of thing that David Attenborough would narrate with like you as
I'd love to see that. That was a good YouTube video idea.
The bowerbird, like, oh, will you come to my turret nest?
Exactly.
Where does it take place? Like, are these maps like you'd recognise from the game?
It's a new map called Eco Point Antarctica.
Really?
It's
Is that where May lives?
I guess it might be. I won the Symmetra off. I lost that match though. But like a Reinhardt off makes no sense as well, because you both charge each other, you both fall over. You have shields, like you just advance at each other. You have one ranged weapon each, but it's on a huge cooldown. And so eventually you both give up and just hit each other with hammers until somebody wins. And so that sort of weirdly sort of divergent skill cap, I think, makes it feel silly, which is a good feeling for it. Because you have the Genji off and it's suddenly mega serious and everyone's trying to chain the combo properly. But then you know, it's just two fucking Winstons and all you're going to do is hold left mouse button and jump about until someone loses. And it's going to feel really arbitrary. Like loads of the matchups I found came down with the other person winning, but with like 11 health left. Which is because the game is not balanced for the heroes to fight each other. And yeah, so it seemed quite fun, basically. So that might get me back into Overwatch more than the new character is just having these fun other ways to play it. But that's a bit of a digression from the BlizzCon news. The other thing that happened on Monday was N7 Day, thus named because it's November 7, which is not what N7 stands for.
Oh, I didn't even realise that's why that was that day.
90% sure that's the case. Because someone was like, isn't it Shepard's birthday? And I was like, no, I think Shepard's birthday is in April. And they were like, how do you know that? And I was like, I don't remember. But it's April 29th. And if I'm right about that, I feel deeply ashamed.
Nerd.
I might be completely wrong. And this year's N7 Day Mass Effect reveal was the new trailer for Mass Effect Andromeda, which I believe everybody has seen.
Yes.
Yep.
What were your thoughts on said internet video?
Well, actually, I haven't seen all of it because I started watching it and I didn't get much out of it. I kind of didn't really follow what was going on, and I suddenly started to feel like it's really weird to watch a Mass Effect trailer because I have a very good idea of what this game is going to be like, not the nitty-gritty specifics, but just roughly what kind of experience I'm going to get. And I know a lot about, what that experience was like for me with the original trilogy, and I wouldn't really want to see any of it in advance. And in particular, it's really weird to see it with someone else's main character. Even though I don't know what my Mass Effect Andromeda character is going to be like, I know it's not going to be that guy. And so I started to just feel really weird about watching it. I was like, I'm kind of spoiling not much, but just little scenes and stuff. And also, it's strange to watch this other guy do it when eventually I'm going to do it with my character. And most of Mass Effect, I just kind of completely believe in it as my Shepard story. Everything about Mass Effect is so closely bound to that particular Shepard I created. And every time I see someone else's Shepard, it's freakish and wrong. I was like, what the fuck is that? You've miscast that horribly.
Yeah, I remember that from the Mass Effect 3 trailers that they had, and I was just like, this is interesting and everything, but who's that guy?
Yeah. At least to be fair to them, with Mass Effect 3, they did at least a few of the trailers twice, once with the female Shepard and once with the male Shepard.
Yeah.
But she didn't look like mine anyway.
No, their female Shepard was close to mine, but not quite close enough.
Yeah.
It's an interesting trailer. I think I viewed it differently because I'm just definitely going to play it. It doesn't matter what materials they put out. So you're coming at it from that angle, it's a bit different. But it feels like what's really new about Andromeda is the exploration phase, the idea that actually you do go down to worlds with the Mako and find things for yourself. And this is just a very kind of straightforward bwom cinematic trailer in the mode of Inception or something like that. And it just felt like any other kind of generic sci-fi realm, whereas I know the reality is going to be far more interesting because they've constructed this galaxy. It
definitely had the Inception bwom, and then there's another sci-fi noise that it had that I really would like a name for, which is I think of it as the plasma fan. And it's this kind of whirring noise. You can tell something's spinning, but it's a very sci-fi thing that's spinning. It goes, woo, 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 woo. And it's whenever a really big thing is about to crash on someone's head or something, they always do this noise.
The plasma fan.
Yeah.
I think I found it so boring. Like, I was just watching this thing and going, really? Like, okay, well, there's Johnny protagonist, he looks boring, and then there's a gravity well for some reason, I don't care, and then, oh, terrible things are happening, but I don't care enough about any of the people that I've seen so far. And then, is that Liara? I don't think that's Liara. Am I a space racist? Because I can't tell. And then it, like, ended, and then it was like, oh, by the way, if you could just sign up to our newsletter, that would be awesome, thanks. And it was just like, oh, for God's sake. I was just so annoyed. Like, it just felt so dull. And, like, the protagonist guy looked like the sort of person who would maybe get halfway through the X Factor after the judges' houses bit and just sit there singing dreadful covers of Ed Sheeran songs, you know? You just be like, oh, for God's sake, you're fit, but you're really boring.
Suffered from having very generic bad guy lines for the bad guy, the floating bad guy.
Yeah.
Whose face they don't show, and it's just like, I finally have you in my grasp.
Now I know what makes you special.
Yeah, this doesn't work. That's meaningless.
It's dance.
So there's a bad guy in this game.
Andromeda.
Discovered.
Teach us.
The most famous scene for me was the most exciting one was the bit where the protagonist is running away from the screen, and there's like loads of Solarians just running past them.
Yeah.
Then suddenly an enormous spaceship just bursts over a mountain and flies over you, going in the opposite direction. I was like, yes,
That was for me.
really
I was like,
exciting.
yes, that's the Tempest. That ship.
Oh,
It's the
interesting.
new Normandy. The Normandy.
And
But there isn't a month beginning with T, so we're not going to have a day for that, are we?
No,
Maybe
but,
Tuesday.
But that's not what the N, that's not what the N in N7 stands for.
Is it not?
No.
I thought it was N7, like Normandy 7.
No,
is that
it's
not
just
what this is?
It's a special forces classification
Oh.
in the Mass Effect universe. Oh, shut up now. It's like
So are we
like,
still N7 people in the Tempest?
No. So I know a bit more about what's going on, partly because I've frame by framed both of the trailers because I had to for work, because I do these gallery write-ups.
Volunteered to for
Yeah,
work.
well, someone was going to do it, and it's like that. You know that bit in Mass Effect 3 with Morden?
No.
Where he says, had to have been me, someone else would have gotten it wrong.
No, he died.
That's what he says before he dies.
But no, he died before that for me.
You kind of
I didn't manage to save him at all.
Well,
You just
Because-
shot Morden when the game started, didn't you?
I didn't understand how the thing worked, where I could like work out who I saved and who I didn't. Like, so I sent him off because I thought that he'd be all right on his own. I think. Or
Go on your own, Morden.
No, I thought that people would be more bothered about chasing after Shepard, and so I'd send the others off to like do secret things on their own.
and you sent the barely armed scientist to kite them while that happened.
And then
luck.
and then they would focus on me while everybody else ran away. I figured I needed the ones who were more vulnerable, like near me, maybe, and he was kind of all right or something. I don't know. I've forgotten how I thought that would work, but he died.
Yeah, he will. He is, on paper, well, in the game's internal system, the most vulnerable squad member.
Interesting.
Most likely to die if you send him in the wrong place. Anyway, so, yeah, having frame by framed it, and also because Game Informer have done that thing they do, where they get all this exclusive information and tied in with a cover feature and release it very slowly. So I know a little bit more now. So there are one of the interesting things is that guy you see as the protagonist in the trailer, Alec Ryder, is one of two protagonists that will both exist in the world, but you pick one of them. Him and his sister, who is Sarah, who's in the other trailer. She's one that wakes up at the end of the other trailer and says, like, we made it.
Does that mean you don't get to set their first name?
I don't know. That's the thing that you confirmed you can change what they look like, and therefore change what they look like relative to each other, which it happens in Dragon Age 2 as well. Like, your Hawk is sort of like derived out into the siblings and parent, sort of genetically to make sure they look like a biological family.
What was your Shepard called then?
One of them was called Shepard. I think I called one of them Endeavour Shepard, because that's Morse's first name. And then one of them was called Just Shepard.
Mine was Filbert.
Pip, take it seriously.
No, it's because it's my name, but also it's an alternative name for a hazelnut, I think. A Filbert.
That's a fine reason.
And I thought that was quite nice. Good name for a
Hazelnut Shepard.
I
child.
appreciate that you taking things seriously is not the same as me taking things
I
seriously.
was taking it very seriously.
But yeah, so I don't know if you can change the names of both of them or either of them. Actually,
Or call them Easy.
Night.
Yeah, I would actually be finally before them actually setting a first name, because they've set a surname a couple of times in order to have characters be able to refer to you by a name. But like, I get quite annoyed in real life if people call me Thurston. Like, I don't really like that. So I'm actually okay. And actually, I don't really give a shit about the names that I pick. Like, it's just going to be a person name, basically. So I'd rather people be able to say like, all right, Jim or whatever, and actually treat it more humanly. I think that actually works better, probably, provided you give other kinds of
Give
control.
them more opportunities to actually establish formal language versus informal language, and actually say things about relationships
Yeah.
by the way people refer to you.
I remember in Deus Ex, obviously you call JC Denton, but that's actually a code name, and you get to enter your real name at the start. And when you get emails from like personal friends, they'll address you by your real name. Obviously they can't say it out loud because they don't have speech synthesis. But it was like disarming because you forget you've done it, and then like everyone's calling you JC, and then you log into your personal computer and like Jaime has emailed you and says, "Hey Tom." Like, what? Oh yeah, I did write that in.
Johnny Communist Denton. How's it going, Johnny Communist? Okay, thanks. Anyway. Yeah, first name's a good idea.
First name's a very good idea. But anyway, so I think Alec and Sarah Ryder is the sort of official names for the two of them. And so they are going, I think they will do the thing where they show like a different protagonist in each trailer. But unlike the Mass Effect ones, it's not like alternate universes where Shepard is male or female. It's which one of them you pick to take with you. Cool. And the other one is still a character in the story.
That's really neat.
And the thing they have implied is that the person in the N7 armor is your father, who will play some role in the story, presumably in a kind of exposition-y, I'm your dad, oh no, I've gone kind of way.
I hope it's like Costume Quest, where whichever sibling you pick, the other sibling is the one who dresses up like candy corn, and therefore gets kidnapped.
I'm sure it'll be exactly like that. I think it's like, I think the candy corn thing is actually one of the pre-order skins, a massive grid of pre-order things.
When BioWare play Costume Quest, they're like, holy shit, they're onto something here.
So there's loads of other stuff you can derive from that trailer, and it's probably the most information, but I don't necessarily want to bore people all the way to death with Mass Effect facts.
Was there anything super interesting that people might have missed?
So I think this came out slightly before this trailer because it was in the trailer for the trailer.
Oh, for God's
but
sake.
it is the first time they've set the timescale for when the game is set,
Okay.
which is 600 years after the events of Mass Effect.
So
But
it's probably not Liara? Like, how long ago Star is
they live 1,000 years.
1,000, okay.
But it's not Liara. It's I think her name is PB, but like that's her nickname.
PB?
Like PB.
Is she the one with the purple jacket?
Yeah.
Like peanut butter?
Yeah.
She's got like
I think it's PB. It might be something like CB.
Is there someone else in a team called J?
CBBs. I do not know.
she's got like the Michael Stipe
Yeah.
across their eyes.
That's what that's
The
called.
Stipe Stripe.
Stipe stripe, yeah.
Michael Stripe.
They had a bear called PB, but it was Potbelly because the bear was pot-bellied.
That makes a lot of sense. I think it's PB. I know it's like two
Pooh Bear
letters.
could be called BB.
But the important thing about it is not that it's just 600 years in the future. It's that the journey to Andromeda takes 600 years. So that's how long they are in stasis. Like, it's not really clear what point they leave after the events of Mass Effect.
Do your hair and fingernails grow in stasis?
I guess not. Because they all wake up looking hot. As per.
Maybe you get like robot stylists in the chamber in the tank
and they just...
with you. They just eat your hair as
Oh my god, they eat it!
You made it weird.
sorry.
We have algorithmically derived 600 years of human fashion. You have a mullet now.
Also, hair is delicious.
They just nibble
Let
away
me
at
eat
you.
the front of your hair, but not the back.
The most interesting thing I learned from the latest kind of info was that, so the idea is they're sending arcs out to find new places to settle and to continue the species. But there are 3 arcs and they have different species on them. So there's a human arc and
It's 4 arcs, isn't
there's
it?
4 arcs.
Yeah.
And I've seen like a bunch of Solarians in that trailer. I'm guessing one of them would be like a Solarian arc. But that's like a really interesting, cool sci-fi idea. Like, how did they reunite on the other side? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
How is that going to work?
Based on the amount of Star Trek star falling over in the trailer, I imagine something goes wrong with the human arc.
Yeah, it seems that way.
And there's also apparently something called the Nexus, which is going to be like the new Citadel, which is kind of like the thing that's supposed to unite all 3 of them.
Awesome.
All of them. So I'm excited about that. And that the other thing that sort of came out in the trailer, someone says, "You're the new Pathfinder," and the Pathfinder is the person responsible for an arc. So at some point you're going to be responsible for
Awesome.
finding a
bigger
path.
ship.
Yeah.
Why would you put a brother and sister on board an ark? Surely the point is that you want them to bang and then continue the
genetic diversity
species.
as
So
possible.
surely you
don't-
want
They're not
to...
2 by 2. It's not like there aren't just 2 humans on top.
There's 2 humans on the it's not like the Earth arc. It's like 2 humans, 2 giraffes, 2 hippos, 2 cats.
Solarians.
Your party would be amazing if that was the
Yeah,
case.
I'll take the
just
giraffe
the
and the
two.
lizard.
I want the chameleon.
I want that fucking badass lizard on the Planet Earth documentary that escaped a
Oh, yeah.
entire.
Yeah, the one that got
But
away
you-
from the snakes.
Hang on, you wouldn't want any
Iguana.
of them to be in your party because you'd want to keep them safe until they'd had babies, right? So you'd all have to just stay in until someone, like...
That's your loyalty mission, just send them
Reproduce.
home and wait.
Maybe that's
20
the
years.
prologue.
like, yeah, you have to have a litter and then you can leave the ark.
I didn't know marine iguanas, like, just eat seaweed. They swim underwater to eat plants.
It's weird though, because they're like a species that has been really, really mined out for wildlife documentaries.
Yeah,
Like
you
they
see 'em all the
turned
time.
up and it's just like, these guys again. I mean, like they're great and everything, but like marine iguanas are just so done at this point. Like,
They are
I
the
think-
turret sequence of animal documentaries.
But I felt like I'd seen everything that there was to see, but
Surely
then they did
that
the chase
snake thing,
sequence.
yeah, that
So
was-
That was all about the snakes, though. The best one. We'll put a link. We've got to put a link to it.
Yeah, it is
Not
astonishing.
about it too much. But there's one like last snake that makes it all the way up right behind
Yeah.
it, and it makes the last lunge and just falls into this chasm. And that snake did not survive that. Like it must be the hungriest snake of all the snakes in that desert.
If you were like designing locomotion methods and you made a snake, I feel like I would just be like, well, I'm done. If that works, then why would I complicate it further? Literally just a flexible stick. That's
It
fine.
shoots along the ground.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And they're nearly as fast as, like, the lizard is faster, but like not by much.
Yeah,
Like, the
also
snake is basically all
also
the way
the
there.
lizard looks stupid when it runs.
Yeah, exactly. The lizard looks really fucking scared when it
Yeah.
runs.
yeah.
It'd be amazing if that's how the Krogan ran. Like, they look really intimidating until they move, and then it's just this sort of flappy lizard
Yeah.
run. Like,
Like Zoidberg.
That'd be amazing.
oh, I'm so glad I managed to land that one back on Mass Effect. So there's some other interesting stuff in the trailer. Like, the thing that struck me about it, even as someone who's very excited about it and loves that series, is it did feel enormously familiar. And in the manner of a lot of modern, like, probably the sequel after you needed sequels, it feels like they're going hardcore back to stuff from the original game. Even though obviously the context is very different on the surface of it. Like, the villain who you hear speaking feels a lot like Saren. Like he has that sort of like authoritarian alien with a bony head who talks to you in a sort of like, but I secretly understand what you really are kind of way. There's a lot of floating towards a monolith. There's like 3 different monoliths in that trailer. There's a lot of like, what the hell's this alien thing? I'm going to touch it kind of stuff. And also there's the sort of, like the stranger in a strange land thing, which, I mean, admittedly, like, humanity was more established in galactic society in the first Mass Effect than presumably you are at the start of this one. But that was still, the fact that you're the sort of new species on the scene was such a huge plot point for the first game that, was present in the subsequent games, but became less a big deal. And so a lot of those themes feel like sort of quite big throwbacks. Similarly, the fact that, they've gone back to the old Normandy color scheme for the Tempest and the Mako is back. And I'm completely okay with people remaking the best Mass Effect game, Mass Effect 1. But, but there was definitely a feeling of like, this has become a formula now for telling a story rather than this sort of wholly original universe. Like there's a template for what a Mass Effect story is in the way that there is a template for what a Star Wars story is.
But also they wanted it to be even bigger because otherwise how would you possibly care about it? It's like, but catastrophe! And this guy! And that thing! And you're just like, well, I mean, or you could just do something different with those characters in that world that you've established. That would be interesting too.
And maybe they will, but like something that stood out to me was like the sort of the implicit sort of like first images of whoever the antagonist aliens are. And they have like 2 arms, 2 legs, guns on their backs. They're bipedal. They use guns. Presumably they learn English at some point. And it's not a big deal. And ultimately, like, I'm sure the game will be successful at evoking whatever drama it wants to evoke because it's ultimately more about the companions anyway, really. But the series flirted with hard sci-fi and some of its ideas, particularly like, why is everyone bipedal? The original Mass Effect trilogy has an answer for that, and it's specifically local to the Milky Way. So for them to go like, we're going to throw you across the galaxy to show you things you've never seen, including bony men with guns, but you didn't expect that. You're like, no, that was the same as where we came. Oh, shit.
It's a bit of the Star Trek thing, isn't it, where all the aliens are just different foreheads. And,
yeah, but it's just the massive...
But Star Trek also explained at some point.
Really?
Yeah, in Deep Space Nine, the founders turned out to be the sort of template for everyone. Right. And so they would all the species had come from the same source, basically.
And they all look exactly like Michael Stipe.
I don't know. This isn't to criticise the game. It's entirely criticising the trailer because, like I say, I haven't played the game and whatever. But as a thing that is supposed to be making me excited about the thing, it's really not done that.
I agree with everything Chris said, though. I am quite excited about the idea of a company revisiting Mass Effect 1 with the technology they now have, that they'll be able to realise a lot of the exploration aspect of it in a way that would be meaningfully different, hopefully. Yeah. In an open world setting, which it seems to be.
Yeah, and I think I would have been more cynical had there not been a bit where a bunch of people who appeared to be in some kind of peril were rescued by the sudden, very loud plasma fan experience arrival of a big spaceship that is their friend. Because that's all I really want.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is all of the news.
That's enough news, isn't it?
That is enough news.
There's been enough news this week.
There's been enough news. What have you been playing, Pip?
Hello.
Hello.
This afternoon I have made my first tentative steps into Dishonored 2.
Which is out today as of the time people are listening to this.
In fact, it's, even at the time of recording, it's out tonight if you pre-ordered it.
Yeah, you get a 24-hour, day zero, don't you, for it, or something.
Which is good, because Bethesda's new policy of giving outlets the game the day before meant we got it 2 days before general release.
Yeah, so that's what I didn't understand. When
yeah.
they talked about that, I thought they meant that the press would get it at the same time pre-orders got it, which is nothing. But you get it one day before pre-orderers, and pre-orderers get it one day before release.
All the difference.
You can probably play Dishonored 2 in 2 days, right?
Yeah.
You probably can't review it in 2 days, but...
No. I'm not writing the review. Adam's writing the review. That's his problem.
I'm extremely excited about the video game Dishonored 2.
Yeah. Me also.
So this is the thing. It's kind of tricky because I don't want to spoil it for you guys. That's a genuine concern. And so I'm not sure what would constitute a spoiler because I know kind of how much it means to people to just sort of play through it, so I'm genuinely not sure what to tell you apart from that I am...
How much you like it?
Yeah. How nice is it?
I'm really liking it so far. It feels right to the point where at the beginning I am playing through this first time as Emily, and I had thought that I couldn't remember control systems and things because I just don't really have a memory for that, but I did find myself being like, oh, for God's sake, why can't I see through a wall? Or, why can I not blink fast travel thing to that thing? Or
she doesn't have an X-ray vision equivalent.
This was just at the very beginning, so it's when you're just a regular human man, girl.
I feel like what Dishonored's X-ray vision is
yeah, I messed that one up. It's fine.
A stealth standard, and it's really good. And I think it's good that it's in these games. I feel like Dishonored is one of the games that struggled with its implementation, where it felt conflicted about whether it wanted to give it to you or not. It felt like it had decided mechanically that you do need it, but it wanted to punish you for using it, but not mechanically. It would just make it ugly, and you had to keep reactivating it. And it wasn't it didn't really cost you anything to reactivate it, but you kept having to do it.
It was a pain, yeah. Kind of, it didn't want it to be on all the time. What else can I tell you? Because I can tell, because I'm honestly not far in. I've just sort of done an intro/prologue thing, so I can tell you about that. Or
how does the tentacle thing feel versus Blink?
So,
I really like it.
yeah, there's a definite sense of grabbing and pulling, which I wasn't expecting. I just assumed it would be a version of Blink, and it very much does seem like, because I think you end up slightly above where you were going, because it's grabbing at.
Yeah, the cursor you get when you aim it is like an arc, almost as though you're throwing something.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I've found just jumping. I won't say where it was, but I was just in an open area and just jumping up and then vaulting up, it flings you and you have a momentum that continues. So you can fling yourself up almost like a Spider-Man, just kind of fly past and over a barrier and onto a rooftop or something.
Because Tom, I remember you saying that you were thinking about playing Corvo first because you love Blink so much that you thought you couldn't do without it.
Yeah, I think they've definitely given it a meaningfully different feel that I already really enjoy. It just feels really, really fun to use. But I've not actually experimented with the stealth systems yet. So obviously they can see you while you're doing the weird tentacle thing because you tend to notice that sort of.
I pride myself on noticing anyone doing weird tentacle things.
But yeah, I was basically planning to do Corvo, and I just thought, I just did a test run. I thought I'll restart it and actually pick my real character. But I'm going to go with Emily now, definitely.
Yeah.
How about you, Pip? Did you get a chance to mess around with it?
I really liked her. Like, as in, I think I just like anything at the moment where I don't have to be the gruff dude anyway, and so like automatically that's more interesting. And I've kind of, even so early on, I've met more interesting people and like sort of found myself pottering and looking at things and reading things in a way that I don't think I think I burnt out on reading things in the last game. Like I was just like, oh,
There's a surprisingly large amount of reading in Dishonored.
yeah.
Like, if you want to get everything from it, like, there's a lot of books in that game.
Like, obviously I can't speak to Corvo's side of things, but the Emily side of things has been, I've felt more rewarded by the readings. Like, I found a thing that was like, I think it was just an old textbook of hers when I was on my way somewhere, and it had like the notes that had been added to the bottom of it, and like it was just quite nice. It was like more of a feeling of almost like in Gone Home, like, you know, that sense of there being a person behind this. You know, obviously not to that extent, but I'm just thinking in terms of documents that feel inhabited somehow by humans rather than just strewn.
They've also massively taken advantage of the fact that the protagonists are now voiced. Emily comments on things all the time. She's always thinking to herself and talking about things. And that gives you a really cool sense of who she is and also what she thinks of the world. Like, it's a good exposition device and tells you more about who you are. And I think functionally, like, the way the story positions you as Emily makes for a more interesting story than the very traditional, you know, when you reverse it, it's just very traditional, but as Emily, it's really interesting.
There's a bit at the beginning where you're sort of just either reminding yourself of control systems or, you know, it's the tutorial, but it's Corvo teaching Emily. And so it's a kind of like, almost like he drills her on these like maneuverings and things, and is like teaching her self-defense and is teaching her, you know, and it's kind of, and he's also really proud of her when she gets him in a chokehold and stuff like that. And it's just like, and he taps out rather than passing out, but it's kind of like, and he's just like, that's my girl.
It's a throwback to the start of the first game, right? Where Emily asks you to play hide and seek with her, and if you do, that teaches you stealth functionally.
Is that after you've picked a character?
No, that's before.
Okay, so even if you're going to play as Corvo, you still sort of play that.
Yes, I think it's still very much showing you that this is... to be fair, I think you could skip the tutorial if you wanted to, but it's more that I didn't want to. But it has reminded me that I'm sort of stuck somewhere in the middle now in terms of control systems, because the keyboard, I'm struggling with the keys because things like crouch, like I automatically try and go for like control or something, but it's C. But it's because control is like this other thing and alt is another thing, and my hands are just not getting it. But when I tried to use the controller, like the aiming is just so nothingy that I can't do it without the mouse, so I'm just sort of in this weird like halfway house in terms of my abilities with the control systems, so that's been a bit weird.
The alt thing is weird. That's how they do leaning. I didn't realise until like I messed around with it towards the end that actually you can just use Q and E to lean without alt.
Sod it.
So you only need alt to actually pop your head up a little bit.
Is there more granular leaning now?
Not on keyboard. I've not tried it with pad, but that was a great thing about pad, that you could just kind of edge out, right? In Dishonored.
Well, because in Dishonored 1, leans are invisible, and this is one of the bigger changes. Like, no,
Right.
So if you're behind a wall and you lean, like, even though technically like half your torso is around the wall,
right,
you can never be seen because the model that the AI is looking for is behind the wall, as far as it's concerned.
Yeah.
One thing they've changed, and apparently it's a mutator now, you can switch on or off in like sort of the deeper optional settings, is leaning. visible, and leaning is visible.
I found that I've leaned very audaciously and they've not noticed me, but that might be that maybe it defaults to off.
I think it defaults to like a curve. So it's like if you do it for eventually, like if you keep basically in the original Dishonored, you can do it forever, and they will never notice.
Okay.
Whereas in this, it's like if you lean a lot, they'll be like, "There's a jaunty leaning person over there." Apparently, there's some other things you can change, like the height of a vision cone as well. People can look up now, which is
interesting.
One of my favourite tweets ever was, I think it maybe started with Steve Gaynor asking if you could lean in Dishonored whilst possessing a rat. And then JP Le Breton, who is also a former 2K developer, replied to say that rat lean consumes normal mana and rat mana, but regular lean consumes only lean mana and not regular mana. It's just like perfect game design fiction.
Instead, you can't lean as a rat or a fish. Dishonored.
But yeah, like I'm also 6 kills into my non-lethal playthrough.
How has that happened, Pip?
Oh, just like.
Do you lean on someone too hard?
Oh god! So I leaned once, and that was fine. I watched a man go past me and face away from me, and then I sneaked up behind him and choke held him, and he survived that as far as I could tell. Admittedly, I did try and put him in a fire, but the game wouldn't let me. There was like a fire guard in front of it, and so I was just like, "Oh, sod it."
For a reason, Pip. That's there for people's safety.
So I left him like propped up against it just in case I could like scorch his back or something.
You were trying to kill this man, I've got to say.
I was trying to like teach him the error of his ways. I'm not a good person in Dishonored
While
at all.
unconscious.
And then I was going down some stairs and into a room, and I spent ages doing this the stealthy way, and he was like doing a circuit of the room, humming to himself and having a little chat, and then I waited until he was facing the other way, and then I choked him, and then I was just like, and then I cut off his arm.
Why?
I think I just didn't want him to wake up. Like it suddenly
This is called killing people.
It suddenly occurred to me that I wasn't sure if he would come to. And so I was like,
Let's cut off his arms.
well, I wasn't sure how long the next part would take, and I didn't want
to do
him
it
to then
non-lethally. I
be
just don't want
behind
anyone to ever wake up.
I didn't want him to come up behind me if I was doing the next bit stealthily, you know?
And if he was going to come up behind you, you wanted him to not have one arm.
I picked up the arm and walked it around a bit. I think I left it in a fruit bowl.
Pip, what part of the non-lethal thing hasn't
At least
clicked?
one person didn't die so far, right? And then I went into a room, a big room, and there was like the key target there who the game explicitly tells you that you can either kill or not kill. And I was like, I'm not going to kill you, but there were 2 other people, so I thought I'd deal with them. And I stood directly behind one of them, and was choke holding him, and it would have all been fine if the other one had like turned away for a bit longer. But he turned around and was just like, it's Emily Caldwin. And I was like,
Blimey! Was it Danny Dyer?
well, but the thing is, I'm not even sure whether he was in a chokehold. I might have just stood up behind him and was like trying to work out which key it was. So I think I was just stood there, really. And then, so I panicked a little bit and stabbed them both. And then, the other guy had sort of run off into the other room with the dead guard by then. And I was like, oh, should have hid the rest of him, not just his arm. And then I thought he might like stop being aware. You know how they do. They go from like hazard to like, oh, it's probably fine.
Like a Roomba.
Yeah, basically. But I'd hidden in a corner, but like there was nothing special about the corner. It wasn't even in shadow. And he just kind of came back around the corner and was just like, oh, it's you. And we had a fight and I stabbed him. So he was dead. And then I accidentally, I think, fell off something, so I was dead.
The most lethal playthrough of all.
And then I went across some rooftops and I dropped down behind someone, I think. I'm trying to remember how this went. And I think I managed to like sneak behind someone, and I was so impressed with myself that I went to choke hold someone else, and then the original guy saw me and chased after me. So I left the choke held guy. He was actually like just unconscious, but I kind of left a few more people dead around him because that was inconvenient. And then I choked out another guard and moved him so no one would know, and sort of just threw him in a corner, which, fine, whatever, no one's gonna know. That was fine. But then I couldn't work out how to do the next bit because I had to sneak past like maybe 3 guards. And then there was also just some random man sitting on some steps looking miserable. And I didn't know whether he was going to narc on me, you know, or whether he was going to just like sit there.
Gonna be cool.
Yeah. And then, so I picked up a bottle, and I should really have probably learnt my lesson from all bottle-based stealth in the previous games. But I threw it, and I thought I was going to throw it into the middle of the street so that all of the guards would move away and stare at the bottle for enough time that I could get past, and maybe the guy on the steps would investigate too. But what happened was I threw it at my foot, and so everyone just came over because they were just like, oh, well, I mean, there you are. I was like, oh. And that's how I died again.
Must be really weird for guards to like have a lot of experience of stealth players throwing things to distract them. It's like, this sounds like a distraction, but they are right there. That is her, right? That's just definitely Emily.
Maybe they thought it was a double bluff. And that happened, like, not the bottle thing exactly, but I died a few more times in that section. So how I solved it in the end was, I ran. I just, like, I just absolutely booked it along the street and then didn't stop running until I jumped into the sea. And that was how I did the first level. And like everyone was like shrieking and running after me, and then I just sort of swam around until they forgot to keep looking for me. And then I got on a boat.
I've used the ocean quite a lot, because it's not just instant death when you go into water now.
Oh.
It's not really
swim.
in Dishonored 1, you just get eaten by fish eventually.
So it's like a time limit
Did the
thing.
fish have like a name?
Slaughterfish.
Really? Because that's what they are in
They
the Elder
do.
Scrolls as well.
Am I wrong? Maybe I am wrong. River Crake is the... No, you are right. Slaughterfish is the Elder Scrolls.
Because there's also, in Half-Life, that also has like razor-sharp fish that attack you. And I feel like there's a game that has razor fins or razor
Dishonored
fish.
has that, doesn't it? Like, you
Yeah.
do get eaten by
Mechanically,
things.
yeah. I was just trying to think what the name is.
I'm so sure it's
has
thought of Slaughterfish, but no, you are right. I think that is Elder Scrolls.
Also, all of the fruit that you encounter comes from somewhere. Like it says, like, oh, you know, like it's what are the names of these places?
Morley, Bristol.
A Bristol, like, pear or something. You know, it's things
nice.
like that. All of the fruit has names. And then I just found a carrot and a potato. And it was just like, well...
They're local.
Where... But, I mean, where's the effort?
I found myself going down a pier and killing people silently, and then disposing of the bodies by throwing them into the water, only realising halfway through that does kill them. I mean, you don't be unconscious in the water and then survive.
It's not a good combo, no.
So it's a passive-aggressive way to get my chaos.
Is there, so both of
for the
you...
bath. And you get to go for the bath.
Makes a really satisfying ka-plunk sound when they go into the water as well, when you throw them in. It's really good.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are choke holding a lot of people, and I'm really enjoying all of your variations on the past tense of choke hold. But I also heard that there's going to be loads of non-lethal options this time. That they're all, like, non-lethal is going to be dedicated to, and there'll be more fun stuff to do in non-lethal ways.
Yeah,
Has that been true yet?
The non-lethal drop takedown looks so fucking lethal. It's amazing. You just sort of...
You just fall on someone and then choke them, but it's like, don't you just really whack the back of their head on the ground?
Yeah,
as
you
well?
sort of land on their
It's like-
shoulders, and then you just kind of like swing round and whack their head with the full force of your weight, having fallen like 12 feet already into the... It's like, non-lethal, he's fine. No, he'll
It's
come
like,
out.
I think it's
fine.
like the Batman version of
Yeah.
non-lethal.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't mean to kill him, therefore he's alive.
But the game is actually still on my side, because at the very end, in the like end of mission screen, it has like a a graph, and so on one of the axes it goes from lethal to non-lethal, and on the other one it goes from stealth to assault.
Whoa.
And so I was in assault, but only just in non-lethal, but still non-lethal.
Yes.
Non-lethal
Gave me the
assault.
system.
Non-lethal,
So-
so it's just running.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, outsider? Look where I am on the weird graph.
So that was good. That was nice.
I've got to say that they've changed everything about the outsider, but he's exactly as dumb and irritating as he was before.
Why is he in there?
It's fine to have him. I wouldn't mind him being
I've
there.
been
but
watching
it's-
you, Emily, this time. I've been looking at what you're doing and judging it in some way.
Yeah,
it doesn't
exactly
matter.
the same. It's brilliant.
Performance, poetry, and a rune. All right, sign up to this.
And I'm really excited about it. The only issue I've had has been some pretty bad technical problems that hopefully they'll patch when it's actually out. So I don't want to...
Sounded like the traditional id Tech day one streaming issues, right?
Yeah, loads of kind of like stuttering sound and like weird stuttering kind of texture loading problems and stuff.
Everything that I've got, the settings are on low, and that seems to be largely okay. But when I was traversing water, the game just freaked out and
Right, maybe that's
stuttered
it.
for a billion squillion years. I was like,
Wow.
yeah, I know, right?
So it must still be going on
No
now.
hyperbole here.
Pippa's lived a full, rich epoch lifetime on a geological scale in the time it's taken her to swim around murdering people by accident.
Amazing.
Yeah. But like, so I'm having fun, but I'm also looking forward to seeing somebody who is far more adept than me, like, make use of these systems. Because me, it is just, I'm gonna try. Everyone's going to die, probably me as well, and then I will just run screaming through the middle of it, like, until someone stops me or I reach a
The
checkpoint.
plot of every Dishonored level for you is a terrible misunderstanding gets everybody killed.
Yeah, basically. Now,
I've
where the
just-
hell are my runes?
I've got to decide how I'm going to play it, because in the time since Dishonored, I remember, like, Dishonored I definitely played in a pretty lethal way, and the last Deus Ex game I played in a lethal way, not Mankind Divided, but Human Revolution, and then Mankind Divided I just went totally non-lethal, and I just sort of found out that in that time, I've become a non-lethal player. So am I going to stick that with Dishonored? Like, I was not sorry that I killed people in Dishonored 1. I was very glad I did it. Like, it was so much more fun. There's so much more tools and ways of doing it. And they have specifically tried to address that, but, I don't know if how principled I'm going to be about this.
I'm going to stick to my traditional rule of, do they deserve it?
Do you have the heart again?
Do you want to know?
Yes. That was the best way.
Okay.
It's in like one of the earliest trailers.
Oh, then yes. There it is.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Well, I think...
But like, do you...
I remember a
do
news
you?
story about, like, the headline was
Necessarily.
every guard has a
Is there
backstory.
a choice?
Well, I mean, there are...
Probably get it either way, don't you?
There are... Well, I don't know. I genuinely don't know.
I've heard enough.
It was
you get the hard
definitely
one, you
in
get the hard-
when I saw it played at Arcane, it was certainly treated like and this is how you find stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Similar to...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know
Dishonored
how
1.
they would do it otherwise.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do have the heart, and you
Because
can point
they-
at stuff and get like, interesting things.
They had a different solution.
That's
to
a
that in
carrot. It's local.
Tasty carrot.
Yeah.
Very exciting. I'm very much looking forward to playing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you, Pippa, are you enjoying it more than the first one? Because I know you liked the first one, but didn't stick with it, I guess.
No, I finished it.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
For some reason, I just thought you murdered everyone on the Golden Cat, and that was...
Oh no, that's where my streaming of it stopped because it felt like I was just
No one needs to see what happens next.
yeah. Like, I didn't really need an audience for that because people would like turn up and just be like, "Oh my god, like, what's going on?" I'm like, well, but yeah, no, I really loved the first one. I was really late to it though, and then but I wasn't sure whether I would pick this up simply because, or rather that I wasn't sure whether I was going to play it while everybody else was, because it had actually been nice coming to it completely at my own pace after the talk had died down. So like, I think it was like, it was a couple of years after the original had come out, and I was like, okay, it's, I just get to play it and have my own thoughts and not have to, I guess, provide like a response within a certain amount of time, just because that's how the industry works. It was quite nice to just be able to, I guess, let it ruminate or breathe a bit, I guess.
What have you been playing, Tom?
Many things. The IGF judging season is open now, so lots of people are getting access to lots of indie games, and you get assigned a bunch, and you got to rate a certain number of the ones you're assigned before you're allowed to go looking for things that you actually, seeking out to play, which is, I think, a good idea. And I've played my 3 assigned games, and surprisingly, I haven't nominated any of them for awards, but they're all good. It's that, like, the thing I've been, I think it's kind of, that strikes you about the IGF selection usually is, that a huge percentage of the stuff you feel like you could have told the developer, like, don't enter this. I'm not saying you'll never have any success with it, but you're not going to win an award for it. It's not going to be. It's just like, it's so rudimentary. It's like everything you're doing has been done 100 times before. And it's not necessarily bad, but it's just, it's never going to get anywhere. But everything I played so far has been actually worthwhile. And so I had to write down the names because I'm not going to remember them. One of them's Ophidia, which is a top-down game where it's like a really advanced version of Snake, where it's completely kind of fluid and not assigned to a grid or anything. And instead of you are still trying to avoid eating yourself, but the way you defeat enemies is to circle them, and then you do have to eat your own tail, but you have to eat the exact end of your tail. If you eat any earlier in your body, you actually hurt yourself and you lose some of your length. But if you successfully bite the end of your tail, then you encircle them and you kill them and you gain length from doing that. And every level is like, it's got a very nice art style to it. Looks kind of like traditional religious art of some kind. I don't know exactly what, era or nation, but, it's definitely very stylized, and each level has a kind of giant creature in the middle of it, and it's way too big for you to circle, so you have to kind of circle everything else around it. And then later on it has mechanics where, like, it's strange. I didn't really figure out what the challenge part of it, or how the challenge was interesting, because there would be like an enemy that has a vision cone that scans left to right, and that's a concept I'm very familiar with, and I'm very familiar with like dodging those things. But if you're going to circle him, you're going to have to just skirt wide enough that his vision cone doesn't hit you ever. Like, it's not a case of timing. It's just like, you just have to get really big and then circle him from a very large radius and then just get him anyway. So I didn't know if that was supposed to be a sort of timing challenge, but I couldn't figure out a way that it could be. It would just seem like a thing that you just get big enough to do it and then you do it. And then eventually you get big enough to circle the boss in the middle and you do that and you win. It's nice and relaxing. It doesn't really go anywhere. I felt like that as it started to get harder and introduce more enemy types that could jump around and stun you and stuff, it just got more annoying. It was just kind of irritating to try and draw a circle around those things. But while it was easy, it was fun. Then there was Frog Climbers, in which you are a frog and you must climb. It's a lot like GURP, Bennett Foddy's climbing game, which is where you're like a guy on a climbing wall. Every handhold has a different letter, and you press that letter on the keyboard to kind of reach towards it. In this, you are a frog, and there are handholds in a very similar way, but instead of those being labelled the keys on the keyboard, you play it with a 360 pad, and your left stick controls the muscles of your left arm, and your right stick controls the muscles of your right arm. And so if you want to reach for a handhold, you push the left stick up to reach with the left hand, and then you press the left bumper to kind of grip onto it. And then you want to reach onto like another handhold above that. And in order to do that, it's very logical physically, but it feels weird controls-wise. You have to push the left stick down, because the hand that's already gripping the thing, even though you want to go up, you want to pull down with that arm in order to lift your body up. And
Oh,
at the
so
same
you're
time,
trying to get purchase on the thing.
so you're already gripping this thing, but you want to kind of haul your body up, and muscle-wise, that translates to a downward movement with that arm whilst doing an upward movement with the other arm, and then you grip on with that. And it's one of those things where, like, if you're trying to think through everything you're doing, it's really difficult. But then if you just remember that, like, oh, it's always up with one until you grip it, and then when you do that, you just switch and you put down with that one and up with the other one, and you grip with the other one, and then it just becomes alternating. It is, seems to be mainly designed as a local multiplayer game, and I haven't played it local multiplayer. I've only played it on my own. The levels are randomly generated. It doesn't have like a single player sort of structure. It doesn't, you just generate a level and you play it and that's it. And so that feels very designed for multiplayer. But it feels really nice to play, and it's very slick, and there are levels with like rotating wheels that have ropes on them, and it feels like there is lots there. They don't really explore it. I feel like there's almost like a really interesting puzzle game to be made of this, because you grab onto like a dangling rope from a wheel, thinking, okay, I'm on this wheel now. And then you realize when this wheel rotates to its uppermost position, I'm still on a rope, and gravity means that I'm hanging below that, so I'm not as high as I could be. So actually, like, when you first grab onto a wheel, you want the lowest hanging thing, and then once you're on the wheel, you kind of want to clamber across it to get to the thing that's most fixed to the wheel, and then that lets you get to the highest position. And then later on, they're like, well, if you pick a certain kind of level generator, then you get wheels that spin really fast, and if there's a rope on that, then that's good because it's getting you onto the outer circumference, and the swing is faster there, and because the angular velocity is constant, and so the actual velocity is faster on the outer rim. So there's all these like interesting physical concepts. It doesn't really explain or it's not difficult to grasp them. Like you get them intuitively, but it doesn't make much of them. It's just like, oh, if you happen to click this kind of generator, you will encounter this interesting situation and realize the generator seems to be really smart, and it will generate situations where you need to. The fact that this wheel spinning fast is not coincidence. You need to use that in order to fling yourself. So you grab onto this rope, and then it's flinging you around, and then you let go at just the right time to fling yourself across to the other side of the climbing route, and then in midair slam the grip buttons to just grab onto whatever you possibly can, and then from there, like, take it more methodically. And that feels really, really cool. And then the other one was, there was no chance of remembering this name. Out Buddies. And then it's got like some X's in it and some dots and some brackets, I think. And it's a Metroidvania game that I've never played any Metroid games or any Vania games. I think they're Castlevania games.
Castlevania.
Yeah. I never played any of those, but I have played Axiom Verge, which is also inspired by them, and this is very much like Axiom Verge, in that it's very low-res pixel art, very limited color palette. The main enemy is a thing that hugs walls and ceilings and just like slowly moves around them, and if you touch it, you get hurt. But it's very nicely made. It's I don't know if it's. I think Axiom Verge feels more accomplished. It's very much more consistent and has loads of mechanics packed into it that are really interesting. This one. There's definitely a lot to it, and it's really nice. It looks really nice. And you have a kind of drone that follows you around, and one of your abilities is to use that drone to like use telekinesis on certain kinds of objects and move these big blocks of stone around, and those kind of governed by physics. And you can also use that drone to like scout around and look at the rest of the level. And it was, in some ways, the most intriguing of the three, in that I wanted to keep playing it to find out what would happen next. But at the same time, it's also not really my genre. I actually don't really like Metroidvanias because I hit a thing and I don't know if I should be able to solve it now or whether I've got to come back with some other ability. And usually it turns out I've got to come up with some other ability. And then what happened with Axiom Verge actually was I played it for a long time and got loads of cool abilities, but then I just got to a point where I'm just like, I just don't know where I have been and where I haven't been. I don't know what the possibilities are, and it's got so big now that I just don't know, like, if there was a thing I passed 6 screens ago, but I haven't been to that screen in 17 screens, and now I've got a thing that would have helped me pass that. So I don't really like that structure. But it does seem promising.
Yeah, that structure is kind of stuff like Metroid Prime on the old GameCube did a good job of kind of doing more of the UI to highlight where the place you should probably be looking at is, almost like through exclams on maps and stuff like that, rather than just what you tend to look at in these games is what is the outline of a room that has a hole in it that suggests a door that is unopened, and you're kind of looking for that really obscure thing in an enormous convoluted map, and by that stage it's just like, it's a game about, it's like, where's Wally, isn't it? It's like, where's the little hole in this series of rooms?
I think Zelda used to do it by just having, like, you'd have the general map that you could access through the menu screens, but if you were in a room, it would just show you that localized area, and so you could sort of just do a quick scan of things and wander around and see, oh, is there a room that it doesn't look like I've been into or couldn't access, or that was, like, always just quite a nice, quick way.
Less boring, isn't it, than just going into a load of random rooms and
yeah,
looking around.
How finished were the IGF games? Because I think when I was doing a bit of judging a year or so ago, like, one was just, it felt like it was nowhere even near a finished game.
Yeah, I'm used to seeing a lot of garbage, and so I was quite pleased that my first three were all things that felt like they're already good. I think the Out Buddies one is probably not that finished, but I didn't get to the end of it, so I can't really, critique its length or anything. But that was, like, a lot of the controls felt very fiddly, and I feel like it needs to go through a few rounds of testing and have people say, hey, this is annoying, change this.
Yeah.
Whereas the Frog Climbers, if that indeed is what it was called, feels really slick and just done. They could just release that, unless they want to add like a series of single player levels, which I think that would be great. And the Snake thing also feels done, although I personally sort of wanted to be a slightly different game and wanted to be more of like a meditative, relaxing type thing. And that was a PC build that I played, but it also feels very designed for mobile. It feels like a tablet game where you sort of trace with your finger where you want your snake to go. But yeah, it basically seems finished. This is a long time ago now, but like there was a rule in the IGF where if you become a finalist, you can't enter again. So it kind of incentivizes you as a developer to only enter when you're done. Like Gunpoint I entered a long time before release, so like a year before release, and Heat Signature I'm not going to enter until it's actually out, because I want to give it like its one chance.
What have you been playing, Tom? I know you've been...
I wasn't doing... so I really struggled to remember the name of this for a long time, and it's finally clicked for me on discovering that the protagonists are called Nick and Nora, and so it's Nick and Nora's Infinite Warfare. It's Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, but I can never remember the Infinite Warfare part, because there's Advanced Warfare, there's Modern Warfare, and there's Modern Warfare 2 and 3.
Finite Warfare.
Yeah.
Infinity
Call of Duty
Warfare.
Finite Warfare is a weird entry.
Yeah.
But yeah, your character's called Nick, your main psychic is called Nora, and so Nick and Nora's Infinite Warfare. Suddenly I can remember it. Have you guys played that?
No.
Not yet.
Not at all. Oh, okay.
No.
It's been out for like a week, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's not the sort of thing I would pay money for.
It's, I think we talked about it actually when E3 happened, because the trailer for it was, just happened without it introduced, introducing
the
that it was Call of Duty.
surprising rad.
And it was like, what the fuck is this awesome game? And it turned out to be a Call of Duty, and that was a surprise. So it's the space one, and it's very, I don't know, from just seeing that, I was still half thinking it would be like basically modern day, but it happens that there are spaceships that exist, and so sometimes you go to space. But no, it's totally space. It's like a lot like Mass Effect actually, where you have a giant sort of capital ship that you are captain of, and you go to a map place and you look at a solar system and you decide which planet you're going to go to next and which mission you're going to do, and there's loads of optional ones. And the main thing that piques my interest is that a significant proportion of those missions are to break into a spaceship, which is literally my whole deal. And the first one of those, actually, maybe not the very first one of those, but the first one that you choose to do, the first one I chose to do, is to like break into a spaceship and assassinate a whole bunch of people. And so it's actually a stealth mission, and it's so nearly exactly what I want, and it is very, very good. So you get to, one of the things I really like about this game in general is that, it feels like loads of stuff they've done is all about kind of player choice and just like stripping away a lot of the, scriptedness of previous games. It's still very scripted, but they want all of the system stuff that does exist. They want you to have control over it. So all of the weapons, I remember in, the last one that I played, Advanced Warfare, I think it was called, there was just one type of sight on the gun that when you look through it would highlight enemies and not highlight friends. And so I was just obsessed with that, because that's the one, like, I need you to solve that problem for me. I can't distinguish with my eyes as to who is my friend and who is my enemy. And if I don't have that sight in this game and in the last game, I will, out of a crowd of 12 people, zoom in on the head of my friend and shoot him directly in the face. Like, they will just reliably pick them out of a crowd and like, that guy, I'm going to shoot that guy. And then it says, no, that's your friend. So I would like desperately just scour the battlefield for any weapon that had that scope. I didn't care what it was. I didn't care if it was an assault rifle or sniper rifle or shotgun or whatever. I just take that thing because I could see what the enemies are. And this time, before every mission, you go to the armory and you have free choice of any weapon you've discovered or found in the field. and free choice of any upgrade that you found in the field as well. And one of them is that scope that lets you see who's friends and who's enemies. And you can also add silencers and damage boosts and all this other stuff. But, rather than all this stuff just being found randomly, you actually get to decide what you want. And if you like something, just stick with it forever. So I really, really like that. And so I did this stealth mission where I had given myself like silencers on everything, and I was so into it. I was like, I'm going to intentionally not take the most powerful weapon because one of them is a pistol, and I just want a silenced pistol, and that's the thing I want in a stealth mission. And I was having great fun, and the whole first, it's a little bit weird because they kind of know you're there, but then you break into their spaceship and then it's still a stealth mission, which makes a certain amount of sense in some situations and not so much in others. And so this first one, you kind of sneak through, and if you can take someone out without them seeing you first, then your stealth is maintained. And I was really enjoying that for the first couple of kills. And then you break into their bunks, and I'm all ready for this. I'm probably going to do stealth melee attacks on them and take them down silently that way, or I've got my silenced pistol in case they turn around or if anything else happens. But as soon as you go into the bunks, it puts your weapons away and you bring out a knife. And now instead of pressing the melee key to knife people, you press normal fire to melee people. And you can still press the melee key, I think, but I try to switch back to my weapons because I'm like, no, I want the silenced pistol in case someone sees me at range, and I can deal with that. But it just doesn't let you. It's just like, we've decided, the script says, you knife these people, therefore we're just going to take all your weapons away and force you to use the knife. Even though I was already going to use the knife probably anyway, because it's a stealth mission. And so that kind of ruined that, part of it. And then you get a disguise, and, while you're in disguise, it has this whole stealth meter system that works for both people seeing you and also if you're in disguise, how suspicious they are of your disguise. And so you get to walk around inside an enemy ship with people all on their patrol routes, who they're allowed to see you, but if they get really close to you, then they start to get suspicious. And you get to just walk by them. And that works really well until there's a certain point where, in the game's defense, it's pretty clear that what happens is your friend gets discovered. And so all the guards are fighting your friend, and you're still in disguise, and they haven't spotted you, and they don't automatically detect you, which is good. But then you literally reach a situation where your friend is at the end of this corridor, she's shooting at these guards, the guards are shooting at her, and you radio message her to say, oh, they still don't know I'm here, I'm right behind them. And then the game expects you to kill them all, and after that point your disguise is blown, everyone already knows you're an enemy. But I didn't attack them because I'm like, my disguise is more important than this fight. I think you'll take them. I think you're a superstar. You're amazing at combat. These guys are just grunts. You'll probably take them all out.
Is this Nick or Nora?
So that's Nora,
right?
Who's trying to take out the 3 guards, and I'm standing right next to the 3 guards. She's not shooting at me because she knows I'm on her side. They're not shooting at me because they think I'm on their side, and I'm just standing there watching this fight. I'm like, I'll just wait for her to kill them, and then I'll carry on because it's going to be useful for both of us, for me to be. Not have my cover blown. But it takes a really long time to kill these people. I think AI in these games tend to be very survivable, but not very effective because they don't want the AI to kill everything for you. At least not since Black Ops 1, where everyone locked that game for the AI killing everything for you. And so, I just waited and waited and waited. It's she eventually killed one of the 3, but that took so long that I'm like, I'm not sure you're ever going to get through this. They're not killing her, but eventually the game really, really wants me to kill just these 2 enemies. So I intentionally did it in such a way that I'm right behind them, and I'm literally going to shoot this guy in the head and then melee the other guy. There's no chance they can see me. Before they know what's happening, they're both dead. And I did that. But then you are just automatically detected by everyone from then on. Every single person knows who you are. Apparently, according to Marsh, there are other stealth missions like this later where that isn't true. Because I said that and he was like, are you sure? Because I've definitely had situations where I've, dealt with those enemies, and if you deal with them well enough, then no one, it doesn't break cover. And that's true for a certain section of this mission, but there's the scripted point after which you're just, it's mandated that you are, seen as hostile. And so I think there are other missions where it's actually systemic and you get to do that. I played one more stealth mission since then, which is in theory really good, but they didn't, even though they let me choose my weapon, they didn't tell me enough about what the mission was. It was to rescue hostages, so I kind of guessed at stealth. I'm like, it doesn't say stealth, and there are other missions that look like this and aren't stealth. But this one says hostages, so I'm thinking stealth, so I'm going to put suppressors on all my weapons, which is the thing you can do, which is great. But it didn't. I basically took one silenced assault rifle, and then I took a shotgun that I was really excited about because there were energy weapons, and one of the mods you can get for an energy weapon is one that recharges it. Only recharges the current mag, but with a shotgun, it's also an automatic shotgun, so it has 8 rounds in the clip, and when you can fire those as fast as you can click virtually. And so with an assault rifle and that, it works really well. There's a little VR testing room where you can test your loadout to see how well it works together. So I was using my accurate silenced assault rifle to shoot people most of the time. Then when I ran out of ammo for that, I immediately switched to the shotgun and just unload all 8 rounds and then switch back to the assault rifle and take cover and reload or whatever. And this energy shotgun, even while don't even have it equipped, it just sort of recharges in the background. So you never actually have to reload it. You can reload it if you want to, manually put more rounds in it. But if it's just in the background, then it will automatically fill itself back up. So the next time you switch to it, it's going to be full again. So it's a really nice, trick. And then I got to the mission and discovered that, this entire mission is a stealth mission. Anytime you're detected, they're going to kill the hostages. And so everything you ever do has to be stealthy. And then the last bit of it is this huge hangar with 25 guards all at long range. And right at the start of the mission, there's a sniper rifle that you can, it's very strange. You are in space. You've jumped out of your fighter and you're going to this big capital ship, which is cool. And you get to use this grappling thing to latch onto bits of debris. And that feels really nice. And just on one of these bits of debris is lying a silenced sniper rifle. Oh, sorry, just a sniper rifle. It sounds like it's silenced, but it's not. And just that's a thing. They happen to be lying around in the debris.
Sound like it's silent, but not be.
Interesting question, and this will become relevant to what happens. So I was resisting that because I picked this loadout really carefully. This is right at the start of the mission. I've just picked these 2 guns that I really want to use. And I'm like, I don't want to leave one of these behind and take a sniper rifle. I picked this for a reason. So I persevered. And then eventually I found God, this is such a sniper section. There are just loads and loads of enemies. You expect this to be a quick section, but it's really long. Everyone is at super long range, and there's a sniper rifle right there. So eventually I picked up the sniper rifle and I shot a bunch of badoos, and then I'm like, but no, I'm putting it back down. I'm taking my cool shotgun that recharges in the background because I want that. And then when I broke into the level, it just became clear, this is not the mission for an unsilenced shotgun. No matter how well it recharges, everything you have has to be silenced, and you desperately need long-range weapons. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to, if I reload a checkpoint, it doesn't take me far enough back, so I'm going to have to restart the whole mission just to pick up that sniper rifle. I don't think there's any way to go back to the armory and pick your loadout again. So the best I could do is restart the mission, then pick up the sniper rifle. Sniper rifle makes the kind of choo noise when you fire it.
Yeah.
It sounds silenced, right? It seemed silenced all the time I used it. No one, I was usually in direct combat, so I couldn't really tell. And then once it came to the big hangar level, and I brought the sniper rifle this time and redone the whole level just to bring this one weapon to it. Every time I shot someone, no matter how far away it was, no matter how far everyone else was from me, as soon as I shot them, everyone was alerted. And even though it sounded like it was silenced, then I realized, actually, when I picked it up, it didn't say the word suppressed in the title. And therefore it doesn't have a suppressor, and therefore it's technically not silenced, and therefore everyone detects you automatically every time you do it. Whereas if you have the silenced assault rifle, which I did have, you can shoot someone 3 or 4 times and they'll scream in pain and stuff, and that's completely silent. No one hears it. You just get away with it. Even if they find the body, that still doesn't, they will acknowledge finding a body, but they won't kill the hostages or do anything about it. And it has this bizarre notion of stealth where, if they hear that gunshot...
Anthony died. Oh, well.
They know you're there as well. You have a fucking out-and-out fight outside their ship, and they see you board their ship, and they're like, oh my god, someone's breached our ship. They're inside our ship now. And then someone taunts you over the tannoy, saying... It's of all the things that villains say to heroes, which are dumb at the best of times, and they will say shit like, don't be a hero, or why are you being such an awesome hero? Which is not that discouraging. This guy says, in a really mocking tone, go on, save them. You're the only one who can. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Kill all of us. Like you killed Anthony. We don't mind.
But it's I'm here, you have the hostages at gunpoint, and you're mocking me for trying to save them, but if you detect me actually being there, then you'll kill them. But if you don't detect me, you're happy about this, and you'll just mock me? I don't know what the content of that insult is. Are you saying I won't do it, or are you saying I will? Why they keep stressing it multiple times? If you don't say them, you're the only one who can. Like, they won't be saved. Okay, yeah, that's why I'm on this mission. I came here because I thought that was the case.
Maybe this is their ploy to get you. You stand there like completely confused in front of the tannoy, like, hang on, like, we got him, guys. He's there. Like,
It's very strange.
it doesn't sound like a Call of Duty game at all.
No, it's so different. Like when I think back to, Modern Warfare and Black Ops and stuff. It feels so much more free and open. Like it gives you so much more choice and so much more credit. Basically, like it lets you choose things.
That sounds quite promising.
Yeah, it's good. It's not as good as Titanfall 2's single player campaign, both in terms of, like, I think just the shooting is better in Titanfall 2. It just feels a lot nicer. And also the actual sort of variety of what you do in Titanfall 2 is so good. Like, every bit of it is really intentionally designed. Whereas these, I love breaking into spaceships. I feel like there's going to be just at least one mission in this game that's just like the perfect spaceship infiltration, because it's so close. Like they're not super scripted after that first one. Like I've done multiple ones since then and they're very similar, which means that they are kind of like more systemic. That sounds strange, but like there's an armory and that's what an armory looks like and that's how it works. And it always means you have to hack this door in this way and you always get some cool loot inside it. And it always means there's going to be a defense section. And I kind of like that. If I know the parameters of what I'm dealing with, then I like that. And I just want like one perfect stealth mission of that. But outside of that, like the general missions are a lot less interesting than Titanfall 2's. And yeah, it has the problem that I think Battlefield 2142 had this, where it's near future. And so the guns are sort of a mix of traditional and sci-fi, and the sci-fi ones always feel a bit less satisfying, a bit less interesting. They're called energy weapons, and they don't fire lasers or anything. They're still just bullets of some kind, but they make a sort of a bit more of a sci-fi noise, and they never quite figured out how to make that as satisfying as just shooting a bullet at someone.
Titanfall's good at that. I love the charge rifle, which is the anti-Titan weapon in multiplayer. You sort of charge it up, and then it goes, and
Good lasers.
really good lasers. Yeah.
I really like the double take in Titanfall as well.
Oh, yeah.
The sniper rifle that fires 2 shots.
I'm terrible with it, but it's amazing.
Yeah,
Feels
I like
amazing
it.
when you
I
shoot
really like it.
The weaponry in Destiny is amazing. You'd think that they would have like hooked up like via the Activision kind of umbrella. Like they would have gone, mate, this isn't quite working. You want to talk to the guys at Bungie, maybe?
Yeah. This is how a fusion rifle should feel.
They're not bad, and they do have they're quite exotic. So there's like a sonic shotgun, which I just don't see the point of. It literally says it deafens the enemy. I'm like, the enemy's hearing is not my problem.
Maybe
like,
the
at least
enemy is
Kill them
a
with a
bat.
gun.
Maybe this is how you defeat Batman.
yeah, maybe. I haven't fought Batman yet. So.
He can't use sonar after that.
But that's the thing, is like my regular enemies are not using sonar anyway. So I see that deafening them is better than not deafening them, but it doesn't really compare to shooting them. That's what the other shotguns do. The other 2 shotguns I have, they just shoot bullets into their body until they die.
What
Which
if
is way more.
If deafening them meant all guns were now functionally suppressed?
That's what I was going to say. Like, is
if
that
you've
how
already
you do
shot
stealth?
them, they know you're there.
But you could just shoot into the air and it would deafen them without them seeing a bullet. And therefore,
I guess we're deaf for no reason, they'd
they'll
cry.
just they'll just be like, oh, it's quite quiet now, isn't it?
So,
That's nice.
Like you can't hear the shot that kills you, you don't hear the shot that deafens you either.
Yeah, basically.
Well, obviously.
And so stealth a go-go, right? Yeah.
I don't think that'll work in practice. I'm willing to try it, but
I liked when you were talking about the this was a long time ago now, but when you were talking about the site that lets you know if someone's a friend or an enemy, I was kind of hoping that maybe there would be that in this, but there would be friends and there would be enemies and there would be the friends that you don't really like, but you're kind of like okay with them surviving, but maybe you could just make this look like an accident and then that would be also a solution.
this is
Go
Dave.
on.
No one will miss him.
Go on, says Judgy Scope. No one likes that coat.
They have many defenses against you shooting your teammates, including like situations where you can't do it, situations where you can do it, but they're basically infinitely tough. And then, even given that, there's a threshold where you've done it enough that they just think you're taking the piss and they end the game. They say friendly fire will not be tolerated. I swear to God, I hit that by accident multiple times.
Oh, it's always
I'm not
telling
trying.
me
I just,
that.
when I look at a group, like, what the fuck is Ramirez doing behind 3 enemies? There are 3 enemies between me and him. Why is he there? I don't
He's
know.
negotiating, Tom, you mad bastard.
It was always telling me that, though. Like, and it had a lot more of a hair trigger, like, less tolerance of friendly fire a while back.
And this, I can definitely, like, zoom in with a sniper rifle and shoot my friend in the face, and that is not game over. But more than that, they start to get pissy.
One's a freebie.
Shall we do questions from questions?
Sure.
You seem so ready there, Chris.
Do them.
I was sorry. Yeah, no, I was really expecting a more like a raucous round of agreement, but
But I've been told off for this in the past. It derailed you.
it did derail me. In many ways, I'm
Too little or too much encouragement can disrail some of the questions.
What's just the right amount? You're a cautious bird, aren't you, really?
I like a sort of slightly delayed sure.
Okay, yes.
That works for me.
Let's.
Fine.
Okay.
Great.
Kane writes, did any of you folks play the For Honor Alpha? If so, what did you think of it? Also, if it was Pip that played it, spoiler, it wasn't, did she get shoved into a pit by someone named Kane T? If so, I'm sorry about that, but in my defense, it was very funny. If not, and you want to know what it looked like, it looked something like this, with a link to a YouTube video of him pushing people into a hole.
That wasn't me. I kind of wish it had been now.
I'm not
'cause that
sure
would
why
have
he
been-
thought it was you.
Was the username Pip?
I checked and no.
Oh. Oh. What was the username?
I couldn't figure this bit out. Kane, let us know on Discord. I mean, maybe I'm wrong and the username was Pip or something, but I didn't see. Anyway, so For Honor is Ubisoft's multiplayer sword fighty online combat game, which is super unusual. It feels really different to any... no one is making something like that, really. Like, it is entirely its own thing. It's closest to a game like Blade Symphony, but that is a sort of an indie thing and itself based on like Jedi Knight sword fighting, and For Honor's a lot weightier than that. A lot more sort of Game of Thronesy in how it depicts people with big medieval weapons smacking each other. And it's also like, you know, it's got learned some lessons from the way that maps and stuff in sort of small team competitive shooters are structured with capture points and stuff, but it's fundamentally a game about sword fighting. And honestly, it's, you know, it's a strange thing. It's the thing I would probably draw the most clear line to is Rainbow Six Siege, not just because they're both Ubisoft games, but because they're such specific propositions, and that's not necessarily a game that's, sorry, not necessarily a studio or a publisher that is known for, or was previously known for making, like, really honed, you know, single high concept games. They tend to make sprawling open worlds with the entire everything in the kitchen sink in them. And
or
so
Rayman. Or Rayman.
Or Rayman. Yeah, or Rayman. And so what it is, I think there's a single player, but fundamentally, you pick a sort of sword fighting class from a better variety of archetypes split between basically knights, Vikings, and samurai. And then you play these sort of team battles with fighting of capture points or one-on-one duels and stuff, and you run around. And the combat system is quite a bit like Dark Souls in some ways, but I say that mega cautiously, and you've played it, Tom, so you'll tell me if I'm wrong.
Great crowbar voice there.
Yeah. In that there is locking on is the main thing, I suppose. I mean,
Yeah, the circling and stuff.
yeah, circling and locking on. But unlike Dark Souls, you also have sort of radial control over the angle you are holding your sword at, and also the angle you block from. And this is really clearly visually expressed in your character's stance. And then you have like heavy attacks and light attacks and grabs and guard blocks and stuff. And so there's a sort of 3D fighting game in there, which is all about sort of anticipating your opponent's move. And you can sort of hammer the buttons and try and just get blows through. But being patient and looking at the actual angle of attack and countering stuff will always work better, basically, than that will. Pip, you look more bored than I've ever seen you in your entire life.
No, I was just like, I was trying to picture it in my head, because is this the one where the E3 video started off as like maybe some sort of Celtic or Pictish sort of looking people kind of crouching, and then it moved through some eras of fighting.
Maybe.
I think. Like, I seem to remember somebody like, or three people, like, sort of maybe having a three-way Mexican standoff with swords in like a greenish landscape that then got more and more complicated as like time whizzed past.
Yes, that's For Honor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's those things that work pretty well about the combat system. It is individually fun to fight somebody and try and come out on top. And then they've done a few neat things to try and solve some of the really obvious problems with a game like that. One of which is fighting two people is really hard. And it is a system that encourages people to kind of cluster up around checkpoints, and sometimes you'll be the only person defending a capture point. And if you get outnumbered, you're probably fucked, because that's how sort of fighting works. It's not like guns where you can take cover and return fire and stuff. You're all in a big duel. And so they've come up with some kind of clever ways of mitigating that. So basically there's like a revenge meter that fills up when you block. And then when it fills up, you can activate it to basically not become invulnerable, but to get like a huge boost to your armor and damage output and your damage resistance for a short period of time. And it actually works pretty well, because what it means is that when you're being attacked by more than one person, you have the opportunity to block a lot more attacks because you're being attacked more, which means you get revenge far faster, which basically turns it into the sort of like the table turn mechanic. If someone's outnumbered, they'll probably charge up this meter and therefore be able to like counter people. And only once in the hours I sunk into the alpha did I actually win a 1v2 as the person by themselves. It literally only happened once, but the one time it did happen was fucking amazing. Because I felt like the best swords lady in all of the land. That's a good thing about it. All of the character classes have male and female variants, so you just pick whether you want to be a cool Brienne of Tarth style plate-clad warrior woman or a lady Viking or whatever. But yeah, I like it. It's good. I don't know if anyone will buy it. I really don't know, because it's such a tricky proposition, and I sort of don't know why they've made it, because I'm glad they did, but it's so unusual, because
I think it sounds like the sort of thing where, from what you've said, I can't imagine a control system that in any way feels like I could manage it.
It's a lot like Dark Souls. Like, it's a lot of the same sort of, like, it's a controller game. Like, you obviously would use a pad.
Okay.
And you move with the left stick and you control the direction of your sword with the right stick.
Okay, like I can't remember, there was something in the way you described it that made me think that's at least like 3 variables, I can't do this.
No, I mean, with the exception of, so like if you can play any game like where you lock onto an opponent and circle them, I mean Zelda works that way.
Would they do it, do you think they could make it for VR as well? Because like that,
it's third person, so probably not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it feels like a swinging sword controls. Input-wise, VR has it solved. Like, you can I can wave a controller around and you can accurately map where my sword will go, which is the problem that we've been trying to solve with mice and gamepads for a long time. But then what should happen in response suddenly becomes the tricky part. We talked before about, what the hell is that name of that VR?
Vanishing
RPG?
Realms?
Yes. And actually sword combat, like, it's a fantasy game where it does a bit of magic, bit of archery, bit of sword combat, and sword combat is the worst thing about it. It's alright, but it's like, it just can't give you any feedback from what you do. And so if the enemy tries to block your blow still goes through them. Why doesn't it hit them when it goes through their shield? Is the sword still there, or has it bounced off? And if it's bounced off, why isn't it where my hand is? And why isn't my hand bounced off? And all that stuff.
That's a reasonable point.
So, like, the input is good enough, but the feedback is a harder problem to solve.
With regards to For Honor, I think that aesthetically, it's probably like extremely marketable, because stuff like Kingdom Come Deliverance, which is like an upcoming medieval sword game, even stuff like The Witcher 3, I think there is a real appetite for just people in armor with swords sort of dueling. And it looks great. Like, it looks really nice, and there's a huge weight and kind of even the cloth, the kind of barding on, around the legs and stuff, just like, sags with like wet rain and blood and stuff. Like it really feels quite.
It is those duel
Muddy.
scenes in Game of Thrones, the game. Like,
Yeah,
like, and I
absolutely.
suppose that has become super mainstream.
And that I think that there aren't many games actually giving you that as a cool thing to experience in a game. The problem I had with it when I was playing it previously was that I was kind of playing the UI rather than the stances. So I expect there probably will be some sort of mode where you can switch the UI off, so you're not just looking at brackets all the time as to where they're blocking. So you can actually read the stances.
You actually do have to look at their animation, not their thing. So maybe in the they even removed.
It's possible. I played
You can see
quite
the
a long time
arrows.
ago.
You can see the arrows for your own stance, but not theirs. If I remember
really?
right.
Yeah, because I did play this like probably about like a year ago at a preview event, and like you'd be looking at their bracket, and then you'd have your bracket, and then
Yeah, I don't remember that.
so maybe it's changed quite a lot. But that was my problem with it previously. As a single player game, it has like a load of problems because it attempts to mix these one-on-one duels with which are kind of heroes that will engage you with like hack and slash, almost Dynasty Warriors style, like room clearance with mooks. So you have like these lower level enemies where you can just slash through them and it's like a power fantasy and you're really powerful and strong. Then a hero will engage you and then suddenly you're in this kind of Simon Says stance game. And then people are still attacking you in it and you'll be trying to hack down the mooks while a hero's coming up to you and then you get kind of glued to them by the game systems because then it thinks you're in one-on-one combat and the fusion between those two just doesn't work at all. It just feels really awful.
That exact thing is in multiplayer, and
really?
it works a little bit differently. So I don't know how much has changed, but on the maps, most of the maps have like 2 capture points, which are just areas that you stand in, and then a third capture point, which is in the middle of the map, which is like the battle line between 2 lines of basically infinite waves of AI that meet in the middle of the map.
Yeah.
And you capture that one for your team by pushing the enemy line back out of it. So to kind of, and eventually it will sort of reset to the middle.
Yeah.
But killing those enemies, the NPC enemies, I think it can even give you some health, but it's deliberately designed to not be a challenge. So every time you basically press attack near them, you don't even need to be locked on. You'll kind of like automatically kill one of them. And then if you keep pressing it, you will just chain between them, and the animation's quite nicely synced up, so your character kind of naturally steps between people, and you're just sort of slaughtering them. And the moment when like another player charges in from their side to fight their way through to you is actually quite effective. Like it has that effect of creating this moment where like 2 champions meet in the middle of the battle line.
Everyone backs away.
And everyone's sort of irrelevant, and then, and then it's just, battling. But no, I quite like it. Like I definitely want to play more of it when it's more polished. I think it's come along quite a way. And I think Ubisoft have proven that they can support that kind of game quite well. But I'll be really interested to see if it takes off because I think you're right that the fantasy is a relatively popular one now. But I do think that its granularity and its sort of pretty high skill ceiling and it can be quite unforgiving at first might put people off. I mean, that said, people really like Dark Souls PvP. And I think it's a bit mad that no one actually made a dedicated Dark Souls PvP game. Like, don't worry about completing this adventure, just get in and fight people using these systems probably sell. And it's kind of that as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think maybe people have been put off by the fact that I think that Dark Souls 1 had like a dedicated PvP arena that no one ever used. And that a lot of Dark Souls PvP is effective because it takes place within the world where NPCs can become involved or be used as part of the trickery of it. So, in Dark Souls, invasion mechanics are, I think a lot of the weird trickery and depth comes from the fact that people are beaming into a living environment where there are lots of enemies, but also you. And also you can disguise yourselves as enemies, or you can throw kind of bombs that attract enemies. And it's a whole kind of ecosystem that that an invader gets involved with when they dive into a Dark Souls game. Whereas I think a pure Dark Souls PvP mode might be a little bit thin, maybe.
People really got into those systems, right?
That's true, yeah.
Just like into not everything else put aside, just the mechanics of blocking and countering and those
The
plays.
best weapons to use. There was a real meta to like Dark Souls games, definitely.
I'm just saying that like, there's
interesting,
clearly an appetite for a different kind of multiplayer that is
Yeah.
about shooting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, more
Does
power
look
to
great
them.
as well.
Looks great. I do love stud fighting games. Yeah, I'm interested to see how it turns out. I admit that I didn't. One thing about it is it does have like classes with special abilities and stuff, and for me, I didn't really want that from it. So I found myself not really using anything other than standard 2-handed sword woman, and even then, not really using the fact that she has like a flashbang. So
What is the flashbang? How does it work?
it's like a kind of like a firework.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like a grenade thing, like the fuse that goes off and blinds people temporarily. Yeah. In the manner of a flashbang, then you can like sweep and clear the room
Check your
Great
sectors.
sword.
with your greatsword, silence greatsword.
Stay frosty.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing they say, isn't it?
I gather the young people say that
Yeah.
in military situations these days.
In that army,
I can't think of anything else young people say that's really bad.
It's just stay frosty. It's the only thing
that's all they say.
That's
They always
just
stay
interesting.
frosty as kids.
Like,
Get
what's
sick
the
of it.
other thing? Like 420?
Stay frosty and 420 are the only two things young people say.
Is that wrong?
I don't think it's wrong so much as I'm
a different
90% sure
number,
that's from
isn't
like
it?
the 70s as well.
422?
The 420 is good.
420 is good.
That's
You
the
just,
correct
you're
number.
thinking about 322, which is the Dota throw
That's the money.
number. Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
360 no scope.
Yes,
That's
the kids
a
think-
young people thing, right?
420, 360 and stay frosty.
Well, you think of more
That's
young
what you
people
put in your
things,
family
Tom.
crest in Latin.
Oh, God. Yeah, I might try and translate that later. I don't know. Like, can you think of any other young people things? I certainly can't.
No,
Let's
I
not
guess
try.
No, exactly.
I'm disillusioned with the political system. That's a young person thing.
I think we all are, though, aren't we?
Yeah.
I made myself sad. Deacon writes, and he says, and I would also say, disclaimer, this is not a question. But he goes on to say, no need to read this out. And it's too late, Deacon.
Yeah, it's too good.
Too late. I'm a photographer, he writes, and often when I work at resorts, other workers often actually say things like, hey, photographer, gonna take some pictures? And the like. I always go into fantasies of who I was supposed to shoot. Usually end up grinning like a madman, slightly self-consciously. I often shoot them, but I haven't killed anyone to date.
So there's two things going on here. One is the shoot versus actually taking photos of someone, sort of play on words, which also ties into my suggestion last week that assassins, I wasn't directly training assassins, I like to think, but if they were out there listening, I was suggesting that you could put some kind of like weapon inside a camera. But that's, I think, his primary
This is surely
commentary
done.
is actually on our criticism, an ongoing running joke of Hitman, in which whatever you're disguised as, NPCs will come up to you and say, oh, you're a waiter. Hey, waiter, gonna wait some tables like a waiter? Oh, hi. And desperately try and get you to acknowledge that they know what you're disguised as.
Waiter's gonna wait.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
episode.
So the fact that a real photographer actually encounters people saying, hey, photographer, gonna shoot some people is hilarious.
Another reader who, maybe I have it here actually, because it's a good email, wrote in to point out that in his, in the White House's, Halloween, actually tell you what, I'll put them in the show notes because I'm not going to be able to open Gmail with one hand while talking. In the White House's Halloween video, which has Barack Obama greeting a lot of, kids as they come to the White House in costume, he sounds exactly like a Hitman NPC. And for understandable reasons, because he's like, hey, it's Superman! You look just like Superman! Wow, plain!
Gotta super some men.
Yeah, etc. But actually that maybe like frames the Hitman NPC issue in a slightly different light, that they're not idiots, they're just incredibly supportive and looking to make you feel less self-conscious about what you're doing.
But if they know you're dressed up, like, that's the whole ball game. Like, if they know that, like, the reason they're being nice to you is because they know you've put an effort into pretending to be a guard, they should be like, oh my god, it's a fucking criminal pretending to be a guard.
Well, I mean, maybe Hitman becomes much both sweeter and more sinister if you believe that everyone else thinks it's a fun dress-up game until that one moment in every level where you fucking kill somebody.
You've taken it too far.
Exactly. Like, wow, what a great waiter costume. We're all having fun at the big Sapienza costume convention. I'm dressed as an armed guard.
Jesus Christ, what have you
God.
done?
Michael Stipe, no.
The stripe was one thing, but this is too far.
Oh, I feel sad now.
Indeed. So yeah, no, that's I guess a game we will never stop getting mileage out of.
It's over now.
Hitman.
It's all out.
It's a season 2 though, coming.
It's all out there. Yeah, okay. It's not over. It's season 1. It's
Hitman
complete.
2016 2, coming 2017.
I would quite like a break though, because it felt like every 5 minutes I was getting a press release about the elusive targets or a
was
notification on my feeds or whatever. So it'd be quite nice to.
The notification on your feeds.
My,
Is that
my
what the young
feeds.
people say?
They use the feeds. They don't.
The young folks use the feed.
Feedly. That's their platform of choice. Flipboard, maybe. Little bit of
Live
the old
journal.
Google News.
Delicious.
God. I
I put
Dig.
this on Dig. Oh, I was going to make a Dig joke.
But no, Dig is now a newsletter because yeah.
Does it
quite
still
good.
exist as a Reddit-like service?
It, as far as I can tell, it isn't anymore. What it is like, it does have that kind of, these are links that are really popular now, and it sort of presents them in a kind of almost magazine style format or a website front page kind of format and just links all over the place. And it also has like a few bits of its own, I think, particularly like video content and things. And so what I have it for is the daily newsletter that just tells you a bunch of stuff that's really popular online for whatever reason. So it's not quite the same as, I don't think there's a submitting things to Dig thing in the same way that was so hugely fruitful for social media managers for about 6 months or whatever it was.
It was quite good for a while after it sort of lost to Reddit. Like, there was a time when Reddit had kind of won that battle, but Dig sort of became its own thing, and it was more curated, and it was, more like a front page of a site, but still driven by people's actual interest in those things.
Yeah.
And for a while, I would, check it sort of as a break from other stuff. It was, kind of interesting to see what they focused on.
So, you might be interested to know that I'm partially responsible for killing all of that stuff.
Dig.
Because one of my first jobs after uni was to, and this is in a much earlier, nastier and more naive era of SEO, was to basically, to try and, sort of basically spam Dig, Reddit, a bunch of other sort of link submission sites with SEO, loaded links to client websites, usually with sort of location based sort of titles, like fucking window blinds Swindon and stuff like that. And I would do it for days on end, posting hundreds and hundreds of links, one after another, forever. I hated that job.
But I quite like what Dig is now, so cheers.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks.
So yeah, no, I killed helped to kill the idea that open submission article curation is something that could ever work. But on the way there, what we discovered was curation.
Friends we made along the way.
Exactly.
Does anyone know why? So there's a site that is currently popular called curiousme or something, and it's the thing
Is that
where
popular with kids or?
yeah, it's probably with the young folks, of which I am obviously one. But it's a site where you set up a profile and then people can ask you questions anonymously and then you reply to them.
But
and
is
it's
that
just
not
like
Ask?
AskFM,
Yeah.
And it's just like the thing that was before AskFM, and I can't remember what it was called, but there was a
Probably
thing
17
before
years.
AskFM. And what I'm interested in is why this particular service has come up at least 3 times, I think probably more, like 4 or 5 times, and got really, really popular. And people loved it and used it. And then it just gets replaced by someone doing the exact same thing. And I don't know why that happened.
Maybe
What
just,
was wrong with the old one? What is wrong with AskFM?
Maybe it
Maybe
plugs
Google buys
in.
it and then they don't actually use it. And someone else just makes the same thing, and then Apple buys it and they don't use it.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
then someone makes the same thing, and then Google buys it, etc.
Or maybe it plugs into particular things a bit better. Like, so if a particular audience ends up on, I don't know, like Tumblr more than Twitter, then if that service doesn't show up better on there,
Yeah.
then maybe someone
Like the way
remakes it. But
Instagram does not embed on Twitter.
yeah, basically, maybe stuff like that. Or I don't know. But to be fair, I really don't think you should be asking me these things because I still call Last FM Audio Scrobbler, so I don't think I'm allowed to voice young people opinions.
Those sites never quite realised their potential for me because they become interesting when someone interesting does that open question session. So it's basically an AMA, right?
Yeah.
But they don't actually offer those up in a searchable way or promote the good ones in a way. It's just individuals amusing their friends without any sort of greater sharing capacity.
They appeal, like, there are clearly a lot of people who want to be interviewed and who have enough people who follow them that they will get questions. And so they're kind of like a happy, match. Like, there are enough people who want to ask them questions, they want to ask the questions, and that's cool. But then they also set these things up to auto-tweet those questions.
Oh god, yeah.
And so you get like 17 things in a row where it's like, I wouldn't mind if it was the whole question, but it's always like 30% of the question. Like the first sort of 7 words of the question and then the first 7 words of the answer. So it's just nonsense. You just don't know what the fuck they asked, you don't know what the fuck they're answering. And it also, you didn't ask that question and you're not curious about the answer. And so it just becomes like garbage. And at the same time, you sort of sympathize with the person who answers it because it's like, they, you know, being interviewed is fun. It's nice. And if someone is curious about something, then you should answer them and there's no reason not to do it publicly. But just when it's automatically retweeted, it becomes this weird type of noise where it's like, I don't know what this person's asking. I'm not curious about the thing they're asking. I don't know what you said in response. I can't really bother to click through. And so it's just like now a whole bunch of garbage.
It's only the person being questioned that matters in that relationship. If it's going to be shareable beyond the questionee, like. Yeah,
I've never really clicked on one of those where I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I really want to know the answer to that question. And I really,
exactly.
Even when it's like a close personal friend, like if I wanted to know that, I would ask them.
It's not just, if Joss Whedon did one, I'd be like, okay, I just want to know what he thinks about stuff.
Yeah,
just an open question.
You'll just go straight to the page and then scroll through the actual questions and answers, though, rather than. I suppose it helps you find out that they even have one of those pages. But like, what's a sort of peculiarly modern tragedy is watching somebody with not that many followers or not that many people who are interested in knowing anything about them sort of say, oh, I've got an hour to kill, let's try this then, here's a link to my Ask FM, and then just watch the tumbleweed kind of flow. And it's like, it's that weird thing of like, I get the appeal of it, but also like, it just doesn't do anything for me. But it's this weird sort of modern thing of oh my god, of young people of people sort of feeling vaguely entitled to an AMA even if they're not very interesting, and you're kind of like
that's not new. That's definitely not new.
Well, that's true, but I guess it's like we've now got the language of AMAs to kind of frame it in, but there's this feeling of like, go on, ask me anything, and I'm like, I really don't want to, I'm late, I want to get to my bus.
Why is my question.
Like, what have you ever done?
90% of people think that their personal experience is more interesting than it is. And then that these websites feed that kind of egotistical perspective.
I'm aware that I spent about 10-15 minutes explaining all of the people that I injured and killed on my non-lethal playthrough of a game.
That was very amusing.
And no one asked me it. Like, I'm just like volunteered
that information. Here's my murder list for today.
Maybe like, well, that's the thing. Like on Twitter, all of these people wanting an AMA when really it's just, I will tell you anything, like, and that's just
CuriousKill.me. Ask me why I killed this person in Dishonored. I'd totally sign up for that.
It's your next startup, definitely. Sell it to Silicon Valley within 6 months. It's your new business.
Then I'll find no way to make it profitable. Then I'll sell it to someone for $1 billion who also has no way to make it profitable. And they'll run it into the ground and everyone will hate me for it and they'll hate them for it and it'll be a disaster. And that's what startups are like.
Have Conde worked out how to make Reddit profitable?
There's Reddit Gold and there's some ads of some kind. I don't know if that's actually making a profit or not. But, I mean, it's got to be doing better than Dig. Because there was a time when there was things, like Dig was the prominent one and Reddit was the upstart. And
we've gone way off base.
We have. What was the question?
About a photographer being shouted at.
Oh my god, that wasn't even a question. He literally said this isn't a question.
This is the most dangerous thing. If you send us not a question, we will interpret
anything could
it
happen.
like an Ask FM.
We start mocking people who ask
Think about Trump.
questions. Oh my
What was it you
God.
said earlier? The gradual entropy.
Yeah, that's the podcast. That's this podcast.
It's everything now, Tom.
Yeah.
So finally, the Cosmic Turtle writes, "Dear Quake and Quop Bar." It's quite a good one, and a new one as well.
Yeah.
Been a long time since we've had a
Congrats.
truly new pun. Last week's question from Kane brought to mind my 62-year-old father. He still regularly plays the Unreal Tournament 2003 on Godlike after nearly 14 years, and also talks of how he uses it to keep his reflexes sharp. I've encouraged him to try newer multiplayer shooters online, as I'm certain he would own, not his word. But he loves the purity of the old school arena shooters and the ability to play offline against bots. I also think it may have something to do with the fact that he may have simply memorized the AI and doesn't want to start over. Having said that, can you recommend any modern arena shooters that might appeal to him, possibly the new UT? Also, which game would you each play into your twilight years to keep your mind and reflexes active? Mm-hmm. Best, the Cosmic Turtle.
All the UT games spring to mind. So UT 2004 has an Insta-Jib mode, and that's,
if he's ready
that's
to
really
move ahead from 2003 to 2004.
Yeah, that's it's time. But also, what about like Devil Daggers?
Yeah.
I haven't played that huge amount myself, but I understand that's a sort of super hardcore, stripped down thing. If he's a purist, then that feels like a good fit.
It's really horrible though. Like, it's really awful.
Hey, Dad, want to go to hell?
It's just anxiety.
It's the best game, but it's
incredible.
It
but,
is just, yeah.
It's beautifully designed and perfect, and
It's also not really a competition. It's like it is a race against death.
What is that game Strafe? Is that out? Very retro shooter, very good. Looks sort of Doom styled, but maybe like somewhere between Doom and Serious Sam, where it's sort of Doom technology, but about murdering a great number of enemies.
I think it sounds like he's sort of into the arena deathmatch side of things, right? Not just flying through a level full of dudes.
That's quite a neglected genre, actually. Like sort of single player versus bots. There's something I really like, but there are very few games that really bother with it. And I really like Overwatch does. Like the bots aren't great, but you can play against bots. That's nice.
Yeah, maybe Overwatch is an option here because it is new and relatively modern and does have bot support. Bot support, I think, is the key thing. Like plenty of shooters you can point somebody towards if they just want to, fight online, but actual games with proper bot support seem...
Did TF2 ever get proper bots? Not that this is a great...
It had a co-op mode against bots where it was asymmetrical and you and the other players were fighting against these actual robots.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
How about CSGO?
CSGO is good.
Does it have bots?
Does have bots. Basic bots. Probably not as good as UT bots, I would guess.
Maybe if For Honor comes out with AI that is a decent enough challenge, that could...
Very different, though, given it's not a shooter, but...
No, but it's still a kind of combat mastery thing.
Yeah.
If it feels like it scratches a similar itch, but if learning sort of the limits of the AI is also part of it, that might be...
I don't know if it'll have bots in multiplayer, though. So
but I was just more thinking, like, it might be worth looking slightly off the beaten track in terms of the actual interaction, because it might be that the particular appeal of it is mastery of a thing that behaves in a kind of semi-predictable way, but still enough to be a challenge, and so being a shooter might just be that might just be the comfort thing.
What about like new Doom single player? It's not arena, but it might scratch that itch. Just kind of,
Yeah,
really
new Doom
weapons.
multiplayer probably not. Although it has got those elements to it, but it's not. I don't think it has bot support. Yeah, as I say, plenty of good shooters. Just
Yeah,
trying to figure
great
out that
EF shooters.
specific-
Holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah, but that specific thing is difficult to track
Yeah.
down.
No, you're right.
I mean, if we're talking about games with amazing systems and you can play again in a single player mode, play Titanfall.
Yeah.
It's the best of them at the moment. But
Is that what you'd do? Like, 'cause that was the other bit of the question of, like, what would you do to keep your
shooters,
brain going?
probably.
Well, I don't think it was necessarily shooters.
No, I don't
What
think it was.
it?
But it was what game?
Oh, okay.
For me, I've probably talked about this a million times, but Batman, Arkham City, the challenge rooms with Catwoman, just against a whole bunch of goons. That's the thing where, like, the parameters are so simple that it just comes down to how good is my reactions. It's like, it just boils everything down to this one decision of, like, do you strike or do you counter? And you've got to really carefully judge how many people are attacking you, how close are they to you succeeding at attacking you, how far would attacking move you, depending on who you attack and what direction you're going in. And yeah, like, attacking is better than countering, but if you're going to be hit, then countering is better than attacking. And all the special moves and stuff you stack on top of that is good, but as simple as you can make that, the better it gets.
That always reminds me of, like, that's the Batman equivalent of the Last Stand mode for Dawn of War, where, the individual kind of hero systems are so good and the fighting system is so good, they can be broken out into a separate kind of arena mode that it sustains its own game, which is always a sign of just a great game, I think. Like, the core systems of this are so good. Maybe the story scripting isn't that good, but it turns out you just transpose these heroes into this arena, either in Batman or in the Last Stand mode, and you get a really, really exciting mode. I wouldn't use that to stave off all, like, slow reflexes in old age, though. Death, yeah. So I'd love to, like a Space Marine, be kind of, like, embalmed in a machine, and, my consciousness.
Yeah, and like in Last Stand, it would be good if life ended with you facing off against a clone of yourself. Like, there are a bunch of builds in Last Stand that don't work because Wave 12 or something is a clone of yourself. And in a lot of cases, that's fine. If you've got a really good, powerful weapon, you can just kill a little clone of yourself. But if you've picked the Orc build where you've just got, like, this knife that generates so much health, it's not that powerful, but it generates so much health, you're just invincible. Then right up until, like, Wave 16, you're absolutely fine. And then Wave 16, there's a clone of you. And you're like, I can't do as much damage as I can heal, and he can heal as much as I can heal, and therefore I can never kill him.
We're not so different, you might say.
That's what happens at the age of 96.
To the clone of yourself.
That's so
You're in
amazing.
the old age princess home and, like, a clone of yourself pops out of your wheelchair. We're not so different, you and I.
Because we're clones.
That mode is so good because of that, because you have to intentionally build weaknesses into your own
exactly.
team. Like, you have to say, okay, someone's going to have to be a bit underpowered, perhaps, in a very specific way that we can exploit in that round to gang up on that one thing.
Yeah.
So good. But with regards to the old age question, I think I'd probably be playing XCOM 2. Really punishing mistakes, you have to really be quite sharp, I think, to play that effectively. But without the twitch element, which I think, if I was going to play something that honed my reflexes, it would be not be something as stressful as a shooter or anything else like that. I'd want something a little bit more milder, maybe even like milder than Batman. Like, I wouldn't want to be
Spider-Man.
The mild Batman.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'd go with Thumper, I think, or something like that.
Jesus Christ.
What?
You're going to be a hardcore 70-year-old if you're playing Thumper.
But, like, I'd have had 70 years to get fucking great
really
at
good at
this, right? But also, like, I think it would be one of those things where it's only stressful in one area. Like, it's a thing that you would repeat and you would learn from and you would get to grips with the patterns of and, all of that kind of stuff. But, like, if I'm being realistic, I'd probably just be sat there still playing Adventure Capitalist, which is sad, and I'd probably feel really annoyed about not somehow reaching a mythical end state in some capacity before death came, which is just pathetic.
The Steam store has been updated lately, and it's got much stronger emphasis on what your friends are playing and things.
Yeah.
And through that, I've discovered that you're the only one of my friends who plays Venture Capitalist. And
Really?
you've played it quite a lot.
Does it tell you how many hours?
It does, but I can't remember off the top of my
It's
head.
like 450 or something.
So it's generally like the last couple of weeks. It sort of tells you like how long.
450 or
The amazing thing is that the fact that John Walker plays Hex Hells a lot is not a great secret, right? That's not a thing I have to be worried about.
No,
So,
he loves that game.
in my friend
really
says,
loves that
like,
game.
of all the games that are played the most, I have something like 200 friends, and all of their playtimes are like mashed together. And number one is Civ 6, which a lot of people, different people are playing. Number two is Hex Hells, which only John is playing. No one else is playing that game.
God.
He is the only one playing it, and single-handedly he has beaten every other game that anyone else is playing.
I wonder if he just leaves it on. Like, which one is it? Is it Infinite?
So there's two different ones, and his
Okay.
combined playtime in both of them would probably outpace even Civ 6.
Because I'm only
One of them
asking
is-
because I think Infinite is the only one of those 3 games where... Hang on. Yeah, there's 3 Hex Hells games, aren't there? Maybe it's only 2.
I feel like the one he's played most of is not the latest one.
I think that only one of them has an infinite mode, though. Like, where you can just keep randomly generating... Maybe I'm wrong, though. But, like... Because the thing is, I've played a shit ton of Hex Hells, just not recently. And it's because, like... And I will happily play the puzzles that I kind of know how to beat, because I speedrun them. From memory. Like, just, okay, this. But, like, I don't let myself just fill in the bits that I know I can fill in. Like, I remember where the pieces go, but I always force myself to work it all out. Like, and try and speed run it, but while still doing the logic side and still, like, working all of that out. So, but, yeah, whereas Adventure Capitalist, I leave it open all day so that I can maximize, like, the points at which things become
is it
available.
an idle game where like
Yeah, it just, like, everything just ticks up, and because at first you have to click each thing to earn from its production, basically. But then pretty soon you've earned enough to hire a manager who does that clicking for you. And so, like, you work your way through all of these different resources. Like, obviously each is worth a bit more and takes a while to unlock, and then the manager takes a while to unlock after that. And so it's kind of like this game that ramps up, and then you also can then sort of buy more of them. Like, you essentially invest in them, so they give you more, like, return on that each time a click is finished on the thing. And then once you get to a certain point, you can kind of unlock the ability to do that on Mars and on the moon and things, and those have, like, slightly different parameters in terms of what you earn and whatever. But, like, the main loop at this point is, so you've done that and you've earned a bunch, and what it does is the amount that your assets and all of that stuff is worth at that point attracts angel investors, like, represented in the game as actual angels. And you can then choose to reset everything, except you then earn the amount of angel investors who were interested at the time. And that applies a percentage sort of boost to everything you do in that second playthrough. And then you sort of rinse and repeat. And I'm on some crazy amount of angels at this point. That means that when I do that first click, once that has completed production on this first thing, I then have enough money to either buy, like, 4,000 of that thing as my next upgrade, or I can buy nearly all of the managers for everything. And then while that's going through, it keeps obviously clicking through that first resource, which is the only click I've technically put into that game. And so by the time I've sort of finished clicking to hire most of the managers, I can usually get the last one, like, if I time it just right. And then you can go and get sort of upgrades so that, you know, I don't know, the lemonade stand that you start with suddenly is worth, like, X amount more, and your angel investors provide X amount more investing sort of potential. And, like, it's just an infinitely increasing amount of money and amount of resources, and it's just a really beautifully pleasing loop, but that makes you just enough unsatisfied that I keep going back to it, and I think a lot of people do. So I think I will just be sort of on my deathbed kind of hoping that this thing will tick over so that I can buy that one last thing. And yeah,
maybe that's what Diablo 4 should be. They should just adopt that exact kind of reward loop. And
Yeah, it's like any game you have to leave running to make it do something is going to do well in Steam's metrics, because Steam's metrics is very much based along like, oh, if someone plays something a lot, they love it.
Well,
They
the
think
thing
it's
is,
the
this
best game
just
ever.
goes, like, when you're not playing it at all. Like, I do not
Yeah.
need to have had it open. It's just that I do, because that means that I can then buy that thing the second it becomes available.
But even stuff like, Mankind Divided, I have probably played the game for like 25 hours or something, but it probably says I played it for 60 hours because I just left it alt-tabbed, because it took a very, very long time to load my save game if I started up again.
Right.
And it wasn't that hard to use my computer if it was alt-tabbed in the background. I would just, if I'm using Twitter or something, that's fine. And so, yeah, Steam thinks I played that game for probably 200 hours.
Wow.
So imagine if you're 004 Barbarian, you just alt-tabbed out and you just kept killing things, like it's automated. And you, the skill was in picking the area where it was best to farm. And then actually you ran just like, you could run 3 or 4 Barbarians, and also then once you've got a 5, it unlocks a new class, and you get a wizard, and then you play with the wizard for a bit. And then you idle him. And then you've got this, so 5 idle barbarians churning, you've got an idle wizard churning, and then eventually they get to a certain point and they unlock a fucking assassin. It's like, whoa, a new class, and you have some fun with that for like 8 hours. Then you idle them, and that also unlocks 2 other wizards. And suddenly it's like a crazy fucking pyramid scheme of heroes that are just mining experience out of the earth for you as you're just idling. And you occasionally get like 4 or 5 interesting hours of game from new classes.
And that's Adventure
You fucking
Capitalist.
love that game, Tom.
I would play that till I was literally dead.
So that game doesn't exist right now.
Not yet, no.
Okay.
Wait,
It's kind of
but
Progress
yeah.
Quest is kind of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Sort of, I mean, some of the ethos of that is in Progress Quest. But
Yeah.
Aren't there other games where you can send other people off to do things? Doesn't the Dragon Age thing let you just send other people off to do shit and
Assassin's
then they
Creed
come
is,
back?
really
The
good.
Dragon Age Inquisition does allow you to send, to commit people on missions that take a certain amount of real lifetime.
Yeah.
Majesty is an RTS where everything you ever want anyone to do, you have to pay them to do it, even if it's to defend their own home. You're like,
in it for me?
the elves, the hordes are coming for the elf stronghold. I want you to defend it. And they're like, how much? I don't know, like fucking 10. No. Oh, Jesus Christ. 30? 30? Will that make you defend your own house? Because if not, you're going to die forever. There's no other way. And they're like, all right, 30.
Oh, payment up
That's
front.
Majesty.
Assassin's Creed Brotherhood was good at this. You could recruit assassins and send them off into missions all over the world. They'd come back to you and actually defend you with new equipment when you did that. So there's an amazing ability in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood where you can whistle, and an assassin, or just multiple assassins, will jump out of the nearest kind of hidden spaces and just kill
You were
whatever.
already there, always.
Yeah. They were always in that haystack, with the broadsword he earned in Vienna for killing some sort of duchess or something. It was really, and that was really satisfying because it fed back into the game. Like a lot of the subsequent Assassin's Creed, a lot of games do this where there's like an overlaid shitty resource game where you play the resource game to get resources, and the resources go into your abstract resource bank. Whereas that game was great because your resources were actually characters that you could then bring into your world to defend you. And then you actually saw them doing stuff, and you could see the upgrades that you'd gotten to them, and you had loads of them because you trained them really well.
Which Assassin's Creed was this?
Brotherhood, I think.
Best one.
The best one. I love Brotherhood.
That's Assassin's Creed 2.
Yeah, so I played Assassin's
In
Creed 2
Rome,
a lot.
isn't it?
It's in Rome. I didn't play anything after that.
Yeah, I love that one.
I hope that elderly people are still into Wii bowling when I get there, because I was really good at that, and like I refuse to miss
Fucking your
out
new
on
granddad.
on my old folks' home bowling trophy just because they've moved on technologically.
Those old folks'
this will not stand.
homes for our generation, they're going to be amazing. They're going to be. It's got to be
Gonna
video
be
games.
awful.
They have to be video games.
They're going to
all
be
over the place.
absolutely awful because there's no
They'll be fucking
population
vibes.
to help.
That's what they'll be.
Have you ever watched Black Mirror this season?
No.
Not yet.
I'll say nothing more.
Is it a dystopian vision of the future
I think it's
based
a good
on
vision.
technology?
Like, I think that's a positive thing. Like,
Really?
if my body is broken and I can't move, then I'd love to simulate my brain with new worlds and the ability to contact people.
Yeah, I mean,
All over the place,
like
you know.
both my grandmothers have died in the last 5 years, and their death was not sort of like the super tragic thing. It was more like the life before the death was just after your body can't do anything. That's the really sad part, is when you're just kind of stuck in a room.
You can't socialise.
And
Yeah, you can't.
They would watch TV and they'd read books and stuff, but it's such a pale comparison to people who are into video games. When we're in that situation, it'll still suck for sure, but we will have so much more going on in our lives at that point.
I will finally finish The Witcher 2.
Yeah, 90% of the stuff that's already going on in my life
immediately
is stuff I can still do in a room alone. There are still things that won't be stopped by me being 80 years old.
It's about shared experiences as well. I think that's the one thing that virtual environments will give you if you're not able to experience that physically anymore, to sit in a coffee shop with someone. Like, even just playing virtual checkers with some other people in a virtual environment and just talking real time over chat. Like, it's a social experience as good as anything.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just really basic stuff that it'll let you do. I think potentially enormously positive thing.
I was just thinking, because, I've suddenly realised that, I enjoy cream teas and National Trust properties and walks, and I have casually looked at Saga holidays just because they sounded pretty good. And, didn't involve a lot of stairs. So, I don't know, I don't know. This all feels really, glib and stuff, and, I don't know. I don't want to reduce people to stereotypes of, Wii bowling and countdown and things like that. That's very much just...
But you are really into the idea of some Wii bowling and countdown right now.
Well, I think because I'm kind of good at it right now, I kind of foresee myself being some kind of queen of elderly people pop culture. But it's more just that, I'm kind of okay at it now, and I would probably, in reality, get my ass handed to me by someone else, even now, and I've just now decided that I would probably be amazing at this when I'm 70. And it's and 70, we were talking about this earlier, that I've realised that isn't even,
It's not old
it
anymore.
doesn't feel old.
It's not old anymore, no.
It's this weirdly abstract age that I've decided was old when I was 7. And reality isn't really bearing that one out. 90 is probably, I would say, closer to how I think 70 is.
Michael
in my
Stipe
head.
plans to live until 125.
Really? What's he going to do when he's 126 then?
Die.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
That's how that
guess.
works.
He's still alive
Aspire.
then. He'll shoot himself. Rob Lowe's character in Parks and Recreation says that the person who lives to 150 has already been born, and he intends to be that person.
I love that show. Really like Parks and Rec. Many thanks to Michael Stipe for guest appearing on this episode.
Yeah. I think that's all the time we have for questions, which we will subsequently forget and wander away from.
How many did we even answer? 2?
About
Two and a
One of them
half?
wasn't even a question.
2.
That was the
and
most-
a statement.
Yeah, okay.
If you'd like to send us a question or a statement for a future episode, you can do so by emailing us at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can also tweet us at Crate and Crowbar and discuss this episode on Discord, the link for which will be in the show notes and also on the website, crateandcrowbar.com. If you'd like to follow us as individuals, I'm at C Thurston, that's CTHURSTEN. Pip is.
Oh, I thought you were calling someone
I
else.
knew because you looked distracted.
I was distracted by my own foot.
I could see that as well.
Problem.
Oh no! What were we doing?
Your
Twitter.
name
Oh,
on Twitter.
Oh yes, no, I got this. It's at Philippa War, which is at PHILIPPAWARR.
Good job,
Thanks.
Tom.
I am at Pentadact. Oh,
It was a dice roll.
I
there.
love
It
doing
was
that.
like,
I looked directly
Son
at
of a bitch.
Pip
Yeah,
said Tom.
I was looking at my phone at the time
50-50,
we
I
heard
was
it, so I
wondering,
just
yeah.
jumped straight in.
Because Tom Senior looked uncertain, and Tom Francis just went straight for it.
yeah.
I, Tom Francis, am Pentadact. PENTADHD.
Tom Senior, at PCG Ludo, which is Idio.
Thanks for listening,
listening.
everybody.
Everybody.
That was a bit weirdly sing-song, and I'm sorry.